Chapter 12-18. Looking at Lu Ping, whose expression kept changing, Xiao Baiyu smiled again and said, I forgot to tell you, the two Wuxing school practitioners who are chasing after us are at the late Dharma stage. Lu Ping's expression became even uglier. He smiled bitterly and said, Senior, you are the pure Yang Laozu. How can a minor repairs disciple like me fathom what you are planning? Even if I were to join in, what use would I be? Xiao Baiyu seemed to be able to guess Lu Ping's thoughts and said, Furthermore, I'm afraid you are still thinking that if we are in danger, you will be the first to be pushed out as cannon fodder. Is that right? Lu Ping's silence was, in fact, a tacit approval of this matter. The things that the pure Yang Laozu planned were often things that could decide the life and death of a sect with a single word. Judging from Xiao Baiyu's tone, Xiao Baiyu was not the only pure Yang who wanted to pull Lu Ping into the group. Moreover, if several pure Yang practitioners were to gather together, what they planned would not only be the life and death of a sect, but also the life and death of the entire cultivation world. Lu Ping trembled at the thought of such an important matter. Not to mention whether he was qualified to participate in it, even if he was, with the weight of Junling behind him. If anything went wrong, the pure Yang practitioners could just leave, and their opponents would not be able to take revenge on the pure Yang practitioners. However, if that happened, Junling would become the punching bag of the pure Yang practitioners. Although Junling currently had the strength of a large sect, in the eyes of these pure Yang practitioners, it was really nothing. What did Xiao Baiyu and the group behind him see in him? Xiao Baiyu laughed involuntarily and said, The reason why I pulled you into the group was actually Laozu's idea. It was also because of your potential that the old man decided to help you. Moreover, you may be able to receive guidance from people like the old man here, which will undoubtedly reduce the number of detours in your cultivation. If you can advance to the pure Yang level in the future, at least our organization will have a successor. In fact, he had taken a fancy to Lu Ping's potential. However, when Lu Ping thought about how the pure Yang practitioners of the Six Holy Lands, Laozu, had joined forces to kill him on the Qingming River outside Magic Cloud City, he could not help but shudder. Lu Ping tilted his head and pondered for a moment, then said, If it was just me, even if I knew that the organization you are in is full of danger, I would not hesitate to join it. After all, as the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. However, I have a sect behind me. The sect I belong to is not as good as the pure Yang practitioners of Laozu. If my identity is exposed, I don't think that Junling can stand firm under the thunderous wrath of the Six Holy Lands. Xiao Baiyu was startled and said, You have to think about it carefully. Although Junling has 10,000 years of inheritance, the one who is really outstanding is only the Grand Ginseng Laozu, who is 6,000 or 7,000 years old. Including the pure Yang practitioners of Laozu and the True Soul, there is only one of them. Moreover, as far as the old man knows, this Laozu did not stay in the pure Yang cultivation for a long time and did not have the time to leave too many arrangements for Junling. Otherwise, Junling would not have been able to continue the inheritance of a medium-sized sect for such a long time after this Laozu. So, if you want to advance to the pure Yang level in the future, there will not be many things that you can learn from, so it will be very difficult. Seeing that Lu Ping was not moved, Xiao Baiyu continued. If you can join us, the old man will help you rescue the 3 green sea snakes. What do you think? This last point made Lu Ping very tempted, but in the end, Lu Ping still shook his head and said, Senior, you don't have to worry about it, I will solve it myself. Xiao Baiyu's face stiffened. With his status, he had once again tried to rope in a minor repairs at the mid-Dharma stage, but unexpectedly, his good words were still rejected. Naturally, he was angry. However, before he could lose his temper, Lu Ping's figure suddenly flew backward. While Xiao Baiyu was stunned, Lu Ping went straight to the 2 great cultivators from Wuxing School who were chasing after him. Lu Ping would rather face the pursuit of the cultivators from Wuxing School than accept Xiao Baiyu's help. For a moment, Xiao Baiyu was a little shocked. However, after Lu Ping left, the air beside Xiao Baiyu fluctuated, and a man in his 50s, Laozu, suddenly appeared there. It looked as if this old man had been standing there all along. Previously, Lu Ping was just a few feet away from Xiao Baiyu, but he did not notice the presence of another person besides Xiao Baiyu. Humph, what an ungrateful junior! I don't know why you value him so much. If it was the old man, I would have killed him directly. The old man was obviously very dissatisfied with Xiao Baiyu's accommodating of Lu Ping, thinking that this was really damaging to the reputation of a pure yang cultivator. However, just as the old man finished speaking, not far behind Xiao Baiyu, an old man who also looked like an old farmer appeared and said, I think this kid has some character. Brother Xiao, why don't you test him again? If Lu Ping was here, he would definitely recognize the old man who had appeared behind him. He was the pure yang cultivator from the Tianxian sect, Qi Fan Laozu. Oh? The old man in his 50s obviously did not expect Qi Fan Laozu to value a minor repairs at the mid-dharma stage so much. He said, although that minor repairs just now is quite strong, isn't it a bit too much to say that he is worthy of the two of you's attention? Xiao Baiyu and Qi Fan Laozu looked at each other. Xiao Baiyu laughed and said, this guy's swordsmanship is not bad. Unfortunately, he is not a pure swordsman. The old man would like to change his habits. Qi Fan Laozu said, this kid has a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Back then, he was only at the late core forging stage, but he was able to kill a Dharma direct disciple of the Taishian sect. He is also very cunning and intelligent. If he were to stand on our side and achieve something in the future, he would definitely be a great help to us and a great enemy of the 6 Holy Lands. The old man somewhat agreed with Qi Fan Laozu's words. After all, it could be considered as a reason. As for what Xiao Baiyu had said, the old man pursed his lips. Xiao Baiyu wanted to give him some pointers. Did he want to find a successor? Even if he wanted to find one, there were plenty in Skyrend. Why would he need to poach someone from a medium-sized sect? At this time, an irritable voice sounded from above the three of them. That kid is not bad. My clan's child once mentioned to me that those who are stronger than my clan's children are considered to be very rare among cultivators of the same level. If we want to make him our disciple, we can just capture him. Why would he dare to resist? Why is he so long-winded? Can't we get down to business? Xiao Baiyu dug his ears, as if the irritable voice had hurt his earlobes. He then said, Brother Yuan, why are you so impatient? There are many strange things happening this time. How did the 9 mystical tower provoke such a huge army of Mara for no reason? They have been besieged for more than 10 years. Since we are here, why don't we try to find out the reason? The 50-year-old Laozi looked displeased. Then what about the Wuxing School's theft of the Qingming River? Xiao Baiyu said, without the spirit treasure, even if the Wuxing School manages to draw the Qingming River's water vein, it is not impossible for them to completely connect the Qingming River and the Yulan River's water vein, but it is not something that can be done in a short period of time. The 50-year-old Laozi retorted. The 9 mystical tower has been besieged for more than 10 years, and the Wuxing School only started digging the Green Jade Canal 7 or 8 years after the 9 mystical tower was besieged to connect the 2 water veins. It is clear that the Wuxing School has already made sufficient preparations. Perhaps the Wuxing School already has the means to combine the 2 water veins. It is best for us not to be distracted by other matters. The irritable voice in the air sounded again. This time, it sounded impatient. Will it kill you to take a look? It's not like we are going to help the 9 mystical tower fight. Besides, the 9 mystical tower may not need us. The 50-year-old Laozi sighed and said, perhaps we will really get into trouble just by taking a look. According to what the old man knows, among the Mara's army that is besieging the 9 mystical tower, there are probably no less than 10 heavenly demons and no less than 40 to 50 Asuras. Even if the strength of each heavenly demon is slightly weaker than us pure yang experts, the difference is not that big. Once there are 1 or 2 Asuras helping us, it will be extremely difficult for us to get rid of them. Moreover, the heavenly demons have a majestic psyche, so it will be extremely difficult for us to get past them. 7 Fan Laozu, who was at the side, suddenly raised his eyes and said coldly, Friend Yuan seems to be very familiar with the strength of the Mara's army that is besieging the 9 mystical tower. However, hasn't the Yuan family always been the vanguard in fighting against Mara? Why are you so afraid this time? The 50-year-old man was actually a pure young adept of the Yuan family. Upon hearing Seven Fan Laozu's words, anger flashed across his face, but he forcefully suppressed it and said coldly, "In order to spy on the strength of the Mara's army that is besieging the 9 mystical tower, our Yuan family has already sacrificed the lives of 4 Dharma adepts, one of whom was even at the late Dharma stage. Furthermore, do not forget that at this time, on the Tianxian Sex Mara battlefield near the sea, our Yuan family adepts are still at the forefront of the battle, so please be careful when you speak, friend Seven Fan." Seven Fan Laozu rolled his eyes and did not take the Yuan elder's words to heart. He continued, "Are you spying on the strength of the Mara's army to prepare for the rescue of the 9 mystical tower?" The Yuan elder, who had been slightly angered earlier, suddenly calmed down. He chuckled and said calmly, "Rest assured, friend Seven Fan. The Yuan family is only following the teachings of our ancestors to eliminate the threat of Mara. It has nothing to do with the rescue of the 9 mystical tower." Seven Fan Laozu did not say anything else, but Xiao Baiyu, who was beside him, changed the topic and said, "In that case, when the time comes, I will only take a look from afar and will not go too deep into the Mara's army. Next up is the matter of the wishing school. However, it seems that the wishing school's plan this time is not simple. They actually used a single 10 of people to distract the Ziyang Palace's attention. Otherwise, the wishing school would not be so brazen as to open a canal between the Qingning River and the Yulan River to connect the water veins." At this point, Xiao Baiyu could not help but pause and turn to look behind him. He saw a man dressed in strange clothes step out of the void and could not help but ask curiously, "Brother Feng, you are?" Chapter 12-19. Not only Xiao Baiyu was surprised by the appearance of the strangely dressed man, but Yuan Elder and Qi Fan Laozu were also surprised. The strangely dressed man surnamed Mao said, "I'm afraid that little guy just now is a little troublesome. Do you need me to help him?" This time, not only Xiao Baiyu and others, but also a skinny practitioner in his 30s who was hiding in the air from the place where the irritable voice came from also jumped out. In the blink of an eye, he walked around the strangely dressed man twice, and shouted repeatedly, "That's strange! Strange! Feng Lu, you have always killed people without blinking an eye. Why are you concerned about a human race minor repairs at this time?" This seemingly skinny and inconspicuous cultivator was the former general of the great spiritual ape clan, the pure Yang cultivator Yuan Pokong. Previously, during the battle at the Azure Nether River, Yuan Pokong's shocking rod had become the key to breaking the deadlock. However, after the pure Yang cultivators dispersed, this Yuan Pokong followed Xiao Baiyu. Many cultivators in the cultivation world knew that Yuan Pokong had been defeated by Xiao Baiyu. With such a history, Yuan Pokong's following was bound to be another battle. Who could have expected that these two would appear here at the same time, and seemed to have a very close relationship? The strangely dressed man Feng Lu's face was indifferent, and his voice was as cold as metal rubbing against each other. He said, "This kid has some relationship with my spirit beast sect. It's fine if the old man didn't see him, but since he saw him, he naturally wouldn't ignore him." The pure Yang Laozu were stunned. On the contrary, Xiao Baiyu glanced in the direction where Lu Ping had left, and shook his head. "Forget it. Although this kid is at a disadvantage, he has been retreating without panic. Obviously, he still has some tricks up his sleeves. It's inevitable that he will suffer a loss, but he won't die. Young man, it's good to let him suffer some setbacks." Xiao Baiyu's words surprised the pure Yang cultivators again. Even the pure Yang cultivator from the spirit beast sect, Feng Lu, was no exception. To be able to resist the joint attack of 2 great practitioners from the Holy Land, they probably didn't have this kind of strength when they were at the mid-Dharma stage. However, none of the pure Yang cultivators questioned Xiao Baiyu's judgment. Obviously, although the 5 Dharma Laozu present were all great divines who could influence the situation of the entire cultivation world, Xiao Baiyu was the leader of the 5 Dharma Laozu. Yuan Pokong also stood on his tiptoes and gazed into the distance for a moment. Then, he turned around and said, "His strength is indeed not bad. Speaking of which, when my clan's child mentioned him in front of me, his face was full of admiration. We, the intelligent great apes, would only praise opponents who are much stronger than us." It can be seen that my clan's child's eyesight is as sharp as old Yuan's, just like how I admire old Shao. However, if it's someone like old Feng who is only slightly stronger than us, we, old Yuan, will not accept you no matter what. Moreover, we will think of ways to surpass you and defeat you. Feng Lu snorted coldly and said with contempt, "If I can beat you into submission like old Shao, won't I have one less opponent to practice with in the future?" The intelligent great apes were scared when they heard this and roared, "Old Feng, come, I, old Yuan, will fight you for 300 rounds. Feng Lu laughed coldly and said, "I'd be happy to, but there's no need for 300 rounds. 3 rounds will do." Boolsh *T. Yuan Pokong didn't even care about fighting. He rolled up his sleeves and placed his hands on his waist, as if he wanted to argue with Ling Mian Feng verbally. However, coupled with the fact that he was stomping his feet, it was no different from cursing in the street. Qi Fan Laozu was like a troublemaker at this moment. He suddenly opened his mouth and said, "All talk but no action. You two cowards!" The intelligent great apes and Feng Lu both frowned. Qi Fan Laozu, on the other hand, looked calm and relaxed. He was sure that the two of them wouldn't dare to fight here. Instead, he turned to Xiao Baiyu and asked, "Old Xiao, do you know of any other way for Wishing School to merge the 2 water veins of Qingming River and Yulan River, apart from the having treasure?" Xiao Baiyu smiled and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to ask my friend, Xiao Tian. Although I know a little, I don't know as much as Brother Yuan, who is from the #1 clan in the world." According to legend, the 2 largest rivers in the world were formed at the beginning of the world. Ping Daoren and Jiao Daoren fought all the way. In the end, both of them smashed down from the sky and smashed through several layers of water, forming the source of the 2 great rivers, Qingming River and Yulan River. Lu Ping had even gone to the source of the Yulan River, Lake of Fallen Sage, and obtained enormous benefits from there. These 2 great rivers, one flowing east, the other flowing southeast. However, the 2 rivers were always inexplicably incompatible. It wasn't that no school in the world of Xiaxingists had thought of connecting the 2 great rivers, drawing and merging the branches of the 2 great rivers, so that they could use the 2 rivers at the same time. However, after the canal was built, there was no way to fuse the branches of the 2 water veins. Although the canal could still be used, without the support of the fusion of the water veins, it naturally lost its meaning to the cultivators' sect. Some people in the world of Xiaxingists speculated that the reason why the 2 rivers could not be merged was because of the origin of the 2 rivers. The Qingming River was formed by Ping Daoren, while the Yulan River was formed by Jiao Daoren. The 2 of them were mortal enemies. Perhaps the 2 rivers contained the will of the 2 of them, which was why they were always incompatible. They all looked at Yuan Xiaotian, but Yuan Xiaotian also shook her head and said, "I'm afraid the old man knows about the same as all of you, but it's just some legends about Luan Taoist and Taoist Chan." Yuan Pokong was surprised and said, "What? Did Wishing School find another relic left by these 2 Laozu?" Yuan Xiaotian quickly waved her hand and said, "It's not so easy to find the relic of the world of Xiaxingists. The 2 halves of a spirit treasure made from half of Taoist Chan's water talisman, and the handkerchief of real spirit containing the tear of Luan Taoist. Wishing School has lost 2 relic of the world of Xiaxingists in a row. It's not easy to find the 3rd one." Yuan Pokong said impatiently. "We, old Yuan, know all of this. Say something useful." Yuan Xiaotian was not influenced by Yuan Pokong. She still said slowly, "They may have found the inheritance of the water talisman." "What? That's impossible!" Yuan Pokong was shocked at first, but then he jumped up and said, "How could the inheritance of the water talisman be passed down?" It was said that Jiao Daoren went to open up the overseas cultivation world. This time, Ping Daoren came looking for him, and the 2 of them fought again. The place of the fight was thousands of miles away from the sea, and thousands of miles away was the newly opened world of cultivation that Jiao Daoren had just opened up. This time, the commotion caused by the battle between the two grew larger and larger. They fought from the North Sea all the way to the South Sea. On the surface of the sea, they happened to walk a line that sealed off the Central Plains and the overseas cultivation world. This line was the space that had been ravaged by the battle between the two, forming a natural moat that separated the Central Plains and the overseas cultivation world. It was the Ocean of Storms. At that time, the fight between the two of them was so big that it might even break up the newly opened world. In order to protect this newly opened world, Taoist Chan and Luan Taoist worked together to create a talisman, which was the Water Talisman. With this talisman, the two heaven-splitting Taoists worked together to separate Ping Daoren and Luan Taoist from the fierce battle, but more importantly, they eliminated some of the broken space in the storm ocean. Although in the end, the Water Talisman was not able to completely calm the storm ocean, it prevented the storm ocean from spreading further, which would affect the safety of the newly formed world. At the same time, it also opened up some passageways on the storm ocean, so that in the future, the Central Plains and the overseas world could communicate through treasured ships. The storm ocean was originally the remains of the battle between Ping Daoren and Jiao Daoren, and it was also the remains of the spiritual battle between the two Laozu. Compared to the Qingming River and the Yulin River, the formation of the storm ocean was undoubtedly the result of the two heaven-splitting Taoists' battle of wills. Since the Water Talisman could suppress the spread of the storm ocean, calm the turbulence of the storm ocean, and open up many passageways connecting the Central Plains and the overseas world, it naturally had the ability to fuse the Qingming River and the Yulin River into one. In the past, the founder of the Watercut branch of Wuxing School, Watercut Laozu, had once obtained the incomplete map of the Water Talisman left behind by Luan Taoist. Then, he suddenly had the idea to use this half of the map to make up for the innate defect of the Watercut branch. But at that time, although Wuxing School had established its position as a holy land in the world of practitioners, it was not as powerful as today's Wuxing School. Although the innate defect of the Watercut branch had been discovered by Watercut Laozu, at that time, Watercut Laozu thought it was not serious enough to affect the rise and fall of the whole school. This was also the reason why Watercut Laozu did not immediately make up for it. What's more, although Watercut Laozu had obtained the half of the Water Talisman, he could not figure out the method of making the whole Water Talisman from it. Helplessly, he fused the half of the Water Talisman into the two pieces of the Spirit Treasure. This caused Wuxing School to lose the inheritance of the half of the Water Talisman after losing the two pieces of the Spirit Treasure. It was said that the other half of the Water Talisman was in the hands of Taoist Chan. At that time, some followers asked Taoist Chan for the inheritance of the Water Talisman, but for some unknown reason, Taoist Chan never agreed. Thus, the inheritance of the Water Talisman was lost. At this time, when Yuan Pokong suddenly heard that Wuxing School might have obtained the inheritance of the Water Talisman, he naturally felt that it was unbelievable. This was totally inconsistent with the legend about Taoist Chan refusing to leave the inheritance of the Water Talisman behind in the world of practitioners. Although it was said that the Water Talisman was made by Luan Taoist and Taoist Chan, the inheritance of the half of the Water Talisman in Wuxing School came from Luan Taoist. In addition, the Luan Taoists seemed to be closely related to the inheritance of a whole set of breaking talismans. Therefore, there was a legend in the world of practitioners that Luan Taoist was also the originator of talisman making. Chapter 12:20. As Lu Ping turned around to face the cultivators from Wuxing School, his divine consciousness naturally swept behind him. However, even though Xiao Baiyu was clearly standing there, Lu Ping's divine consciousness could not sense his aura at all. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, and he unconsciously glanced behind him again, only to see that Xiao Baiyu was clearly smiling at him. This was a huge blow to Lu Ping, who had always been very confident in his own divine consciousness. And just as Lu Ping was fighting with the two great cultivators from Wuxing School, every time he dodged and moved, he could clearly see the figure of Xiao Baiyu, who was standing more than 10 miles away. However, the two great cultivators from Wishing School who were fighting Xiao Baiyu never saw the appearance of Xiao Baiyu. This made Lu Ping even more shocked by the methods of these pure Yang Laozu. The reason why Lu Ping would rather turn around to deal with the two late Dharma adepts from Wishing School instead of being forced to join them by Xiao Baiyu was not only because he was unwilling to accept such a method of coercion, but more importantly, in the past 10 years of seclusion, Lu Ping had great confidence in the growth of his own abilities. Therefore, when Lu Ping turned around to face the attacks from the two great cultivators from Wishing School, he did not take any defensive or evasive measures. Instead, he turned his pair of flying swords into a Milky Way river and rushed towards the two great cultivators. He wanted to break out of the encirclement from the hands of these two great cultivators. The 10 years of seclusion in the Qingming River had not only improved Lu Ping's cultivation, but also the Great River East Sword technique. Looking at the oncoming Lu Ping, who actually dared to split his supernatural power into two and attack the two great cultivators separately, the two great cultivators from Wishing School had a contemptuous smile on their faces at the same time. This young man was really bold. Even if he had the experience of defeating great cultivators before, he was still too arrogant if he wanted to fight one against two. The two great cultivators, who had made up their minds to teach this young cultivator a lesson, roared at the same time. One of them waved his hand, and the magic treasure in his hand immediately split the surging Milky Way in half. The other did not move at all, but half a mountain rose behind him, standing in the middle of the Milky Way of sword light like a huge pillar that supported the sky. No matter how the sword waves struck him, he never moved an inch. However, the two great cultivators were still shocked. They had thought that after breaking Lu Ping's arrogant attack, they would immediately launch a counterattack and give Lu Ping a head-on blow. However, although the two Milky Ways were both neutralized by them, the powerful impact contained in the Milky Way of sword light made them no longer have the strength to launch a counterattack against Lu Ping. It was already very good that they could still stand in front of Lu Ping. However, Lu Ping's methods had never been limited to a single attack. Usually, he would launch a series of follow-up attacks, and this time was no exception. The two heavenly rivers split into 4 streams behind the two great cultivators. However, the moment they reached the back of the two great cultivators, they abruptly turned back and turned into 4 strange flood dragons that bared their fangs and brandished their claws, charging at the two great cultivators from behind. The two great cultivators were shocked once again. They did not expect that Lu Ping's control of his natal power had reached such a fine level, and they did not expect Lu Ping's spiritual essence to be so strong. He could split one divine power into 2 attacks, and he could still maintain such a powerful force. At the same time, the speed at which Lu Ping was charging forward did not change at all, and he was still charging straight at the two great cultivators. Lu Ping was actually attacking the two great cultivators from Wishing School in a pincer on his own. The two great cultivators were shocked at first, and then they felt greatly humiliated. A third-generation minor repairs, who was only at the mid-Dharma stage, could actually force the two of them into such a situation. In the future, if word of this got out, would they still have any face left? On the left, the great cultivator who had split Lu Ping's Milky Way divine power had a folding fan hanging above his head. However, this great cultivator did not care about the sword dragons that were pouncing at him from behind, and his eyes were fixed on Lu Ping, who was flying towards him. Then, he suddenly shook his wide sleeves, and a gust of wind even tore the surrounding space apart. As for the two sword dragons that were pouncing at him, they were forcefully blown into nothingness by this gust of wind. Meanwhile, the folding fan hanging above his head gently waved at Lu Ping, who was not far away. Unlike the violent waves caused by the flapping of his sleeves, this folding fan did not cause the slightest ripple, and it seemed to be completely silent. However, Lu Ping, who was flying towards him not far away, suddenly changed his expression. What made Lu Ping's expression change was also the great cultivator on the right. This great cultivator did not even care about the two sword dragons that were pouncing at him from behind. It was as if he had lifted the half of the mountain that was rising above his head, and before the two sword dragons could get close to him, they were smashed into pieces by the protective shield hanging down from the mountain that was hanging high in the air. At the same time, this great cultivator let out a "heh," and the half of the mountain floating above his head suddenly emitted rays of yellow light, and rapidly expanded outwards, merging into the undercurrent that the great cultivator on the left was fanning with the folding fan. When the yellow light merged into the undercurrent, it seemed to expose the invisible undercurrent, but in fact, the undercurrent could not hide from Lu Ping's divine sense. Instead, the power of the undercurrent itself made Lu Ping very wary. After fusing with the earthen yellow light of the other great cultivator, the surging undercurrent instantly turned into a sandstorm that covered the heavens and the earth. Lu Ping's pouncing body was instantly drowned by the yellow sandstorm. Deep in the center of the storm, Lu Ping felt countless sand and dust surging under the raging storm, launching a continuous impact on Lu Ping's protective aura. Lu Ping's protective aura that had long reached the phenomenal success stage faded away layer by layer under the erosion of the sandstorm. Thinking of the scene where Lu Ping's Azure Wyrm disturbing the sea sword technique was destroyed by the storm of the great cultivator on the left, Lu Ping did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. The cloud sail wrapped around Lu Ping, and a black flag floated in the air. A waterfall-like stream of light hung down from the fluttering flag, shrouding Lu Ping in it. On the light shield, purple-gold auspicious clouds piled up. No matter how the yellow sandstorm raged, it was always able to block it several tens of meters away. However, at this time, Lu Ping was still besieged by the magical powers of the two great cultivators. Although he could protect himself, he could only take the beating. Just as Lu Ping stabilized his footing, he suddenly noticed an unusual change above his head. Then, a black shadow appeared above his head. Even the raging yellow sandstorm couldn't conceal its presence. It was the mountain-like spirit treasure that hovered above the great cultivator on the right. Lu Ping's eyes widened in shock. His eyes widened in shock, and he could tell that it was the mountain-like spirit treasure hovering above the great cultivator on the right. At this time, Lu Ping realized that his divine sense had been greatly hindered in this sandstorm. Otherwise, he would not have been alerted when the mountain-like numinous treasure was about to hit him. Lu Ping knew that this was the beginning of the joint attack of the two great cultivators, and there must be endless follow-up methods. At this time, Lu Ping was deep in the sandstorm. His vision and divine sense were blocked, but the two great cultivators outside the sandstorm were not affected by their magical powers. A huge white jade lotus suddenly appeared above Lu Ping's head, and then gradually bloomed in the raging sandstorm. After a loud bang, the white jade lotus firmly stopped the mountain-like numinous treasure that was falling from midair. However, this sudden blow made the white jade lotus dim and almost fall apart. Under the lotus, Lu Ping's face also turned pale. The impact of the huge mountain-like numinous treasure when it fell was not so easy to withstand. The fact that Lu Ping was able to lift the spirit treasure in his hand with brute force clearly surprised the two great cultivators. However, they were clearly used to working together. As soon as the mountain-shaped spirit treasure smashed down, the folding fan in the other great cultivator's hand suddenly disappeared. In the sandstorm, just as Lu Ping held up the mountain-like numinous treasure, 12 sharp swords had already pierced through the madly dancing sandstorm and stabbed towards the cloud sails that were 30 meters away from Lu Ping. How were these 12 sharp swords? They were clearly the ribs of a folding fan. These 12 fan bones were coming from the mountain-like numinous treasure that Lu Ping had blocked with all his might. His Jinqi was at the moment when his old strength had been exhausted, and he had not yet recovered. Although the cloud sails and the water-controlling flag were extremely superior defensive magic treasures, Lu Ping still could not block this sudden attack when he did not have the time to complement his Jinqi. Although the shield had been pierced, the water-controlling flag and the cloud sails had still consumed most of the power of the 12 fan bones. At this time, a dense sword light rose around Lu Ping's body. Seeping sword technique. After a series of metallic clangs, the thin water-flowing sword managed to block 7 of the fan ribs with all its might. The nether water sword flashed and cut down another fan rib. Then, Lu Xiaoping jumped out from behind Lu Ping and cut down another fan rib. However, the remaining 3 fan ribs were still flying towards Lu Ping's body relentlessly. Ding! 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 3 crisp sounds rang out almost at the same time, and Lu Ping's body floated up from the ground. The 2 purple jade bracelets, one above and one below, turned into a 3-foot-long hoop, covering Lu Ping's body and blocking the last 3 fan bones. The purple jade bracelets were a pair of First Tribulation spirit treasures that Lu Ping had obtained after killing Hanya Laozu. Although they had been nurtured by Hanya Laozu with an ice attribute Kung Fu and were not very compatible with Lu Ping, this did not prevent Lu Ping from liking these 2 spirit treasures. Although the power of these 2 spirit treasures in Lu Ping's hands was not too high, it was still easy for them to block the 3 fan bones at this time. The cloud that was pierced through turned into a cloud of chaos and shrouded Lu Ping in the middle of the sandstorm. When Lu Ping blocked the fan bones' attack, the 2 great cultivators outside the sandstorm didn't see what was happening inside the chaotic cloud. Chapter 12:21. It was unclear whether it was intentional or not, but when the 12 fan bones pierced through the cloud sail, the magic cloud shield turned chaotic. The 2 great cultivators outside the sandstorm didn't know what had happened inside the shield, but the great cultivator holding the folding fan knew that the 12 fan bones didn't succeed. But the 2 great cultivators weren't in a hurry. While Lu Ping blocked the 12 fan ribs, another piece of paper floated out from the sandstorm and merged with the yellow sand. Then, Lu Ping noticed that the world around him had changed again. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. The drawing was naturally the fan's surface, and now that the fan's surface had fused with the sandstorm, it was obvious that the fan's surface was an array diagram. And Lu Ping was no longer besieged by the 2 supreme skills. Instead, with the array diagram's support, he was constantly being besieged by the 2 supreme skills. Theurgies had a beginning and an end, but a formation could always make the theurgies start over and over again. Lu Ping knew that if things went on like this, he would definitely be trapped by the 2 great cultivators. Even if he could hold on, when the other cultivators of the wishing school arrived, he would still die. Taking advantage of the chaotic situation created by the cloud sail and the water-controlling flag, Lu Ping made up his mind and grabbed the 2 halves of the spiritual treasure. But he still felt it wasn't enough, so he patted his chest. The sword of the true spirit, Emoli, appeared quietly in front of him. The appearance of the sword of the true spirit didn't attract the attention of the world like before, but the spirit of the 2 halves of the spiritual treasure still retreated from the back of Lu Ping's hand to his shoulder. The 2 halves of the spiritual treasure didn't show up in front of the 2 great cultivators, but the 2 long blade lights still pierced through the sandstorm. The 2 great cultivators outside the sandstorm were startled. "What's this?" When the 2 great cultivators didn't know what the 2 blade lights were from Lu Ping, another shocking sword light pierced through the sandstorm silently and appeared in front of them again. It formed a triangle with the previous 2 blade lights, as if they were helping each other. No one could detect the signs of the 3rd blade light before it appeared. However, after it appeared so abruptly, although the blade light still looked ordinary, there seemed to be a strange power in the dark that made it impossible for anyone to ignore its existence, as if it was born to be the center of the world. However, although the 3rd blade light attracted the attention of the 2 great cultivators, the moment it appeared, the 3 blade lights began to move. At the same time, the 2 great cultivators from Wishing School also seemed to have noticed something wrong. They began to work together to operate the yellow sand refining formation that they had set up. However, something shocking happened very soon. When the first 2 blade lights crossed each other, the 2 great cultivators soon discovered that a huge gap in the formation that they had set up together had been broken. This gap was enough for Lu Ping to take advantage of it and use it as a loophole to escape from the formation. However, what happened next shocked the 2 great cultivators even more. After the first 2 blade lights cut a big hole, because Lu Ping didn't take the opportunity to escape, the attack that the 2 great cultivators had prepared completely failed. Then, the 3rd blade light casually slashed through the air. With a sound like silk tearing, the expression of the great cultivator who held the folding fan changed instantly. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood. With a boom, the entire sandstorm suddenly collapsed toward the center. The yellow sand refining formation that the two great cultivators had set up together was completely destroyed. At the moment when the formation was destroyed, two pieces of paper slowly floated down from the air. If it wasn't the surface of the folding fan, what else could it be? However, at this time, the formation of the yellow sand refining formation had been torn into two pieces. The folding fan was a spirit treasure that the great cultivator of Wuxing School had kept for hundreds of years. Now that the fan was torn, it directly hurt his vitality. However, Lu Ping couldn't care so much. The moment the sandstorm formation was broken, a stream of light dashed out and tried to break through to the west. However, right at the instant Lu Ping charged out of the formation, he heard a voice suddenly resound by his ears. Isn't this Northern Sea's fellow Taoist Lu Tianping? Fellow Taoist, where are you going in such a hurry? The voice was friendly, but in Lu Ping's ears, it was more hateful than the crisp sound of the King of Hell's command. This person was Mu Changxing, the first direct disciple of the Wood Slayer sect, who ranked third among the 5 Juzi of Wuxing School, whom Lu Ping had met in the South Sea. Lu Ping fought against the two great cultivators of Wuxing School on his own. Although he broke through the siege of the two great cultivators with the help of the spiritual treasure and the sword of real spirit, and seriously injured one of them, how much strength did Lu Ping have left? At this time Mu Changxing, who could be considered an outstanding figure in the entire cultivation world, came out of nowhere. Obviously it was intentional. Although Lu Ping knew something was wrong the moment he heard the voice, when Lu Ping found the source of the voice with his divine thoughts and tried his best to defend himself, Lu Ping's expression changed. The supreme divine ability, colorful petals formula. Mu Changxing had actually also practiced this heaven-defying divine ability in the wood property, and he used it on Lu Ping as soon as they met. Obviously, this person had been nearby for a long time, but he never showed up. Instead, he secretly prepared this divine ability, waiting for Lu Ping to break out of the siege and give Lu Ping this fatal blow. The supreme divine ability, colorful petals formula, was a heaven-defying divine ability that was specially used to increase one's lifespan. Cultivators who were hit by this divine ability might not be seriously injured, but their lifespan would often be reduced by a certain amount. The spirit treasure in Mu Changxing's hand was a flower basket filled with 108 different flowers. At this moment, all of them were falling down from above Lu Ping's head. At the very least, they were much more pleasing to the eye than Jiang Tianlin's 108 green leaves. Mu Changxing's spirit treasure was a flower basket that was filled with flowers of different colors. However, this pleasing scene was a method to kill. No matter what, it had to spoil the scenery. Therefore, at least Jiang Tianlin Laozu's fallen leaves looked more appropriate when he used this divine ability. Although the colorful petals formula could increase one's lifespan without harming one's life, anyone who suddenly lost decades or even hundreds of years of their lifespan would definitely fall into a state of weakness. This was undoubtedly the best time to take someone's life. In fact, although the art of fallen petals perfusion was said to not harm people's lives, and this was true, there were countless cases of people being weakened by this divine ability, causing their strength to plummet, and then being easily killed by their opponents. Although this divine ability did not kill people, there had been many people who had died because of this divine ability. Mu Changxing was full of confidence. He was sure that even if Lu Ping escaped from the siege of the two seniors of his sect, he would still be an arrow at the end of its flight. Naturally, he had prepared more than just the colorful petals formula. As long as he made his move at the right time, this North Sea water sword immortal, who had made a name for himself in the Central Plains for decades and was almost about to take the title of the #1 cultivator of the 3rd generation in the cultivation world, would fall by his hands. The #1 cultivator of the 3rd generation. Yes, this was the title. Although the heirs of the 6 Holy Lands, the heirs of dozens of large sects, and many rising geniuses made the 3rd generation of the cultivation world seem to be a group of heroes, although no one had mentioned the title of the number one cultivator of the third generation. In fact, no one would care about it. Moreover, the competition between them was unusually fierce. Back then, the first heir of the Crystal Palace, Qin Shijun, was the first of the 3 generations of practitioners to pass the first lightning tribulation and reach the mid-Dharma stage. For a time, he was praised by the entire cultivation world as the number one cultivator of the third generation. However, in just 5 years, the first heir of the 6 Holy Lands had passed the first lightning tribulation. 10 years later, even the second and third disciples of many large sects had reached the mid-Dharma stage. Qin Shijun's title of the number one cultivator of the third generation seemed to be on his head, and in less than 5 years, it had become a scene of hundreds of flowers blooming. However, in the past 20 years, the most famous person among the 3 generations of practitioners was undoubtedly the North Sea practitioner, Lu Tianping, who had been roaming the central mainland. Before the Pure-Yang battle at the Qingming River, Lu Tianping had consecutively defeated Chang Chun, the head of the 3 Talents House of the 9 Mystics House, and Sima Chongfeng, the head of the West Pavilion of the Skyward Pavilion. After that, he had ridden on the Black Tortoise to swim in the Qingming River and fought with the great practitioner of the Green Sea Snakes, Chu Yuntian, to a draw. Following that, he had single-handedly defeated the head of the 4 elders of the Tenma people, Mali. That was not the end. After that, Lu Tianping had sparred with Yuanlong of the spiritual Great Ape clan for several days. After that, Yuanlong had admitted that he was no match for Lu Tianping. After that, Lu Tianping had single-handedly defeated the 3 heads of the 9 Mystics House, the 7 Stars House, the 8 Trigrams House, and the 9 Palaces House. He had also captured the head of the 8 Trigrams House and saved the Green Fox 9 bandits, who were rather famous in the cultivation world of the north. After that, there was another rumor in the cultivation world. It was said that before the 9 Mystics House was besieged by Mara, Lu Tianping had single-handedly charged into the 9 Mystics Mountain and faced the joint attacks of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th generation house masters of the 9 Mystics House, only to be lightly injured and forced to retreat. In the following 10 years, there had been no news of this Lu Tianping in the Central Plains. Even so, the illustrious battle achievements that Lu Tianping had left behind in the Central Plains over the past few years were enough to overshadow all the heirs and geniuses of the same generation, especially when Lu Ping had single-handedly defeated the 4th elder of the Tenma people on the Qingming River and broke through the siege of the 9 Mystics House's 4 heirs. It seemed that after the rise of the 2nd generation cultivators had been suppressed by Xiao Baiyu with a single sword strike, the situation of the 3rd generation cultivators was finally going to be broken. The cultivation world was going to produce another outstanding genius that could surpass all the other cultivators of the same generation. Chapter 12:22. In fact, the current Lu Tianping was already the first of the 3rd generation in the entire world of cultivation. Mu Changxing knew very well that if Lu Tianping, who had emerged from the North Sea, was the most popular person to win the title of the first of the 3rd generation in the world of cultivation, then today, Lu Tianping was able to break through the joint attack of 2 Dharma adepts from Wishing School, and even seriously injure one of the Dharma adepts and tear apart the array diagram of the spirit treasure. This meant that Lu Tianping's title of the first of the 3rd generation was indeed true. But so what? Today, I will let you die by my hands. This title of the first of the 3rd generation has only been won in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Who in the world will know about it? Mu Changxing laughed sinisterly in his heart, but his hands did not hesitate at all. Just as the flower basket spirit treasure fell from midair, a huge tortoise Dharma power had already risen behind Mu Changxing. It stretched out its tortoise head and roared at the sky. The moment Mu Changxing displayed the colorful petals of the fallen petals, he had already summoned his Dharma power to participate in the battle, preparing for the next thunderous blow. Obviously, he wanted to kill Lu Tianping. Just as the sky full of petals surrounded Lu Tianping, who was caught off guard, in the perception of Mu Changxing's divine thoughts, Lu Ping seemed to have made some sort of response. But Mu Changxing did not take it to heart, because he could already clearly feel that under the ravaging of the colorful petals of the fallen petals, an endless stream of strong life force was being absorbed by his supreme magic power. This idiot, he is really an arrow at the end of its flight. He actually did not even have the slightest resistance to this magic power. With such a strong life force, it seems that this blow can take away a full 108 years of his life. Right now, he must be extremely weak. I'm afraid that even a core forging adept can easily end his life. Mu Changxing was ecstatic. The giant tortoise Dharma power behind him, with a strong pure yang aura, roared and rushed towards Lu Tianping, who was covered by his magic power. This was the real time to beat a drowning dog. Mu Changxing, who prided himself on his meticulous planning, would not make the stupid mistake of showing off in front of a loser. No matter when, a poisonous snake that had not been killed would always have a fatal blow. Although the colorful petals of the fallen petals was extremely difficult to resist, and almost anyone who was hit by it would lose their life force, this did not mean that there was no way to resist it. Apart from dodging, the most effective way was to weaken the power of this supreme magic power. Although it could not be completely removed, at least it could weaken the effect this strange magic power had on one's body. This kind of supreme magic power, which was said to be inherited from Taoist Chan, could at most erase 108 years of a cultivator's life force in one fell swoop. Even if the cultivator had enough life force, after suddenly losing more than 100 years of his life force, he would probably be extremely weak in a short period of time. Perhaps even Laozu, who had become a true spirit and was said to have a life force of 2,000 years, would not be an exception. According to Mu Changxing's estimation, with Lu Ping's ability to fight against two great cultivators, even if he was at his peak, if he was hit by his magic power, even if he tried his best to resist, he was confident that he could erase 20 to 30 years of Lu Ping's life force. Even if this would not cause a fatal impact on Lu Ping's strength, Mu Changxing was confident that it would be enough to deal with him. Moreover, at this time, Lu Ping did not have much strength left after the series of fierce battles. In Mu Changxing's opinion, his sneak attack would at least take away 67 years of Lu Ping's life force, enough for Lu Ping to completely become a fish. However, in reality, the result of this attack was still beyond Mu Changxing's expectations. The life force was dissipating so quickly. In Mu Changxing's opinion, it was enough for Lu Ping to lose nearly 100 years of his life force. At this moment, the giant tortoise Dharma power rushed into the sky full of rain of flowers with a deafening roar. This time, he was definitely going to die, right? A giant purple gold claw suddenly stretched out under the sky full of rain of flowers. Under Mu Changxing's distorted expression of disbelief, the claw pressed down on the head of the giant tortoise Dharma power that was rushing over. The moment the giant tortoise Dharma power rushed over with unparalleled momentum, it stood upside down in a sorry state, and then fell hard to the ground with all four legs in the sky. Amidst the sound of ho-ho, Mu Changxing's dry mouth could no longer speak. In the end, a few words came out of his mouth with great difficulty, but he said, "How could this be?" From the complementary attack of the two sides, how could Mu Changxing not know that the strength Lu Ping reserved far exceeded his estimation, and it seemed that his magic power did not have the slightest effect on Lu Ping. When the claw struck out, how did Lu Ping feel weak after being affected by the magic power? He was not weakened by the fallen petals art. How did he do it? Bang! There was no time for Mu Changxing to think too much. The sky full of rain of flowers was scattered, and Lu Ping rushed out of the fallen petals art unscathed, and then quickly flew into the distance. Although he avoided the fallen petals art, and blocked the giant tortoise Dharma power, at this time, he was really an arrow at the end of its flight, and really did not dare to stay any longer. Moreover, from the time when Mu Changxing launched a sneak attack on Lu Ping, to when Lu Ping broke the fallen petals art and escaped, although it was only a split second, the two great cultivators who had their yellow sand refining formation broken by Lu Ping had already rushed towards Lu Ping again. At this time, how could he dare to stay any longer? And just after Lu Ping broke through the fallen petal's art, there was also a strong fragrance that filled the sky, including the fragrance of the 108 flowers, and a strange fragrance that Mu Changxing felt very familiar. The appearance of this fragrance even made Mu Changxing feel a special attraction to the fallen petal's art. Could it be that this fragrance was the reason why Lu Tianping was able to break the fallen petal's art? It was just that this fragrance smelled very familiar, but why couldn't he remember it? Just when Mu Changxing was surprised, he clearly saw that when Lu Ping broke through the encirclement and went far away, he suddenly looked back and stared at him. What kind of gaze was this? It was calm but extremely deep, and even Mu Changxing could not see the anger, mockery, or joy that should have been in this gaze. There was only a kind of deathly stillness, as if Lu Tianping looked at him like he was looking at a dead man. Are you still thinking of revenge? The corner of Mu Changxing's mouth curled up, and he said to himself, Then you must have the ability. Although Mu Changxing was sure that Lu Tianping of Wishing School would definitely die in the future, and he even sneered at the look in Lu Ping's eyes, Lu Ping's look before he left had always been like a shadow in his mind, covering him with a layer of impression. That fellow actually broke through your fallen petal's perfusion art, and was still able to escape so easily? One of the two great cultivators of Wishing School who had joined hands to attack Lu Ping, Laozu, who held the Yellow Mountain Peak spiritual treasure, rushed over first. Seeing this, he could not help but ask Mu Changxing, Greetings, Martial Uncle Gu! Mu Changxing sensed this and hurriedly bowed to the old man beside him. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded and said, Not only that, I think this guy even completely avoided the attack of the fallen petal's art. At the moment when he broke the divine sense and fought with me, I didn't even notice that his strength was weakened at all. Cough, cough, cough. The other great cultivator, who had suffered some injuries because the formation diagram of the spiritual treasure was destroyed by Lu Ping, also rushed over at this time. However, after he asked about the fragrance mixed with the fragrance of the flowers, he was immediately surprised and said, Hey, this smell, is this the Wonder Dew? Oh, that's right, that guy from the North Sea actually used the Wonder Dew to block your fallen petals art. So that's how it is. What a clever idea, what a great skill, but it is indeed effective. Wonder Dew? Martial Uncle Shu, are you joking? Mu Changxing asked in disbelief. At the same time, he roughly understood why his divine sense was able to destroy so many of Lu Ping's divine sense. However, even though the Wonder Dew contained a lot of vitality and was a spiritual item used to refine top-grade longevity pills, it was not a longevity pill in the end. In order to counteract his divine sense, how much Wonder Dew would be needed? I heard that the North Sea boy used to have a nickname in the North Sea, the boy of many treasures. In the past, this nickname and his birth in the North Sea was a joke in the cultivation world. Previously, his strength was no longer a joke, but from today onwards, who would dare to think that the title of boy of many treasures is also a joke? Ah, the Wonder Dew is truly a reckless waste of natural resources. How many drops would be needed to counteract the effect of your divine sense? It seems that we have really missed a human-shaped treasure trove. After escaping from us this time, the boy from Beihai is going to step on our shoulders to be the #1 person among the practitioners of the third generation. Alas, I didn't expect that after hundreds of years, there will be another person like Xiao Baiyu who is the best among the practitioners of the same generation, and we have become the background of his success. The words of the two great cultivators of Wishing School made Mu Changxing feel even more annoyed. Seeing that there was no hope of chasing after Lu Ping, Mu Changxing hurriedly bid farewell to the two great cultivators, then turned around and flew toward the section of Qingming River where Shui Jiro and the others had joined hands to ambush him. Several hundred miles away, after shaking off the pursuit of Wishing School, Lu Ping finally stopped. He coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of bloody foam onto the ground. Only then did Lu Ping rummage through his storage magic item and find an exquisite jade essence bottle. From within, he found a pink medicinal pill and swallowed it. Then, he held 2 supreme-grade spirit stones in his hands and began to work hard to restore the nearly exhausted real essence in his body. Fortunately, I have the spiritual explosion technique this time. Otherwise, to neutralize Mu Changxing's profusion of fallen petals, I don't know how much wonder due I would have to pay. Chapter 12:23. When unleashed with its full power, the colorful petals art could erase a cultivator's lifespan by 108 years. At that time, although Lu Ping was suddenly attacked by Mu Changxing and his own strength was at its lowest, even if he used all his strength to resist, he would at most lose 20 to 30 years of his lifespan. However, the moment Mu Changxing made his move, Lu Ping already knew that this Mu Changxing definitely had a backup plan. This person had been planning this for a long time, and certainly did not only have the power for this one attack. But if Lu Ping used all his strength to block the colorful petals art, he would certainly not have the spare strength to block the attack of the giant tortoise. However, at this time, Lu Ping directly threw out half of the Wonder Dew. After a total of 12 drops of the Wonder Dew were stimulated by the spirit explosion technique, a huge amount of life force spread out, immediately satisfying the absorption of the colorful petals art. It must be known that each drop of the Wonder Dew could be used as a spirit guide to refine a 30-year purple gold longevity pill. Although the huge amount of life force contained in it was not comparable to 30 years of lifespan, it was still at least 8 to 10 years. The 12 drops of the Wonder Dew combined with the spirit explosion technique, a secret technique that maximized the potential of the spiritual materials, emitted a rich life force that was enough to confuse Mu Changxing's perception. Fortunately, Lu Ping's method saved him a lot of time. He used a mouthful of true yuan to regain his composure and immediately launched a head-on attack at the giant tortoise avatar. Meanwhile, the dragon avatar in his heart-core space cast a spatial spell. It stretched out its dragon claw from the void and pressed down on Mu Changxing's giant tortoise avatar. The powerful and mysterious avatar immediately caused Mu Changxing's giant tortoise avatar to suffer a great loss. Right after Mu Changxing and the 2 great cultivators of the sect left, the nearby space shook, and Xiao Baiyu and the others suddenly appeared nearby. Yuan Pokong immediately exclaimed, "Amazing! This kid was actually able to achieve this. I'm afraid he's not inferior to you, old Xiao, from all those years ago. I didn't expect that such a monster would appear in the 3rd generation of cultivators." Xiao Baiyu's usually calm expression also carried a trace of solemnity as he said, "Perhaps I would have lost to him if I were to risk my life back then." 7 Fan Laozu, who rarely spoke, also raised his head in surprise and said, "How could this kid have such strength? Looking at his swordsmanship, I'm afraid it's not as sharp as yours back then." Xiao Baiyu nodded and said, "It's true that it's not as sharp, but it's more vigorous. This kid's true essence is unimaginably rich, and he actually still had the strength to counterattack after being ambushed by 2 great cultivators. But don't be deceived by this kid. This kid isn't a pure sword cultivator at all. Nonsense!" Yuan Pokong opened his mouth and said, "Of course I can tell that this kid isn't a pure sword cultivator. A sword cultivator wouldn't use so many divine abilities and spirit treasures that aren't flying swords. Nowadays, how many people are like all of you who cling to a sword and refuse to let go? It's never bad to have more skills, and there'll always be a time when you learn something else. I heard that this kid is also a rather famous pill refinement grandmaster. At his age, he has such accomplishments in both cultivation and alchemy. You, Xiao Baiyu, are far from being able to reach that level all those years ago." Xiao Baiyu shook his head and said, "If I'm distracted, I won't be able to reach the supreme realm of one sword to destroy all laws." Yuan Pokong sneered and said, "One sword to destroy all laws? So what? Jiao Daoren was still suppressed by Peng Daoren for eternity." Xiao Baiyu explained. Although Jiao Daoren left behind the explanation of one sword to destroy all laws, in fact, even he himself hadn't really reached such a realm. Otherwise, even if Peng Daoren had the #1 divine weapon for opening the world, I'm afraid he would still die under Jiao Daoren's sword." Yuan Pokong shouted, Look, Even Jiao Darn himself hasn't mastered one sword to destroy all laws. Do you think you, Xiao Baiyu, can? If you don't have faith, you won't succeed, Xiao Baiyu said indifferently. After that, he ignored Yuan Pokong's disapproving look and changed the topic to Lu Ping. He continued, "What I mean is that this kid's trump card is much more brilliant than his swordsmanship. His swordsmanship is just a layer of clothing he uses to conceal his strength." Oh! This time, not only Yuan Pokong, but also Qifan Laozu and Yuan Xiaotian were a little surprised. Feng Lu, who had been silent all this while, said, "No wonder, so that's how it is. Impossible, this kid's swordsmanship is already so powerful, then what is he hiding?" Yuan Xiaotian and Qifan Laozu's faces were a little ugly. Obviously, only Xiao Baiyu and Feng Lu could see Lu Ping's true strength, and it seemed that Feng Lu was still a little hesitant. It was only after hearing Xiao Baiyu's words that he finally confirmed it. As for the other three pure young Laozu, they obviously thought that Lu Ping's most powerful magical power was on the flying sword. Xiao Baiyu shook his head and said, "I'm not too sure about this. Why don't we old Yuan test it out?" The other pure young Laozu were a little tempted by Yuan Pokong's idea, but Yuan Pokong's motive was probably for fun. Xiao Baiyu thought about it, and finally rejected Yuan Pokong's idea, although he also wanted to know what this young cultivator was hiding. He said, "Let's not pay attention to him for the time being. After all, he can't affect the overall situation now." However, the matter of Wuxing School and the 2 water veins is imminent. At this time, we must not be distracted. At this time, what Lu Ping, Xiao Baiyu, and the others did not know was that Wuxing School had opened up the Green Jade Canal and connected the 2 water veins while Jiushuan Tower was besieged by Mara's army. This news made the whole Wuxing School furious, and it also surprised Xiao Baiyu and the others. People from both sides concluded that this news must have been deliberately released by Lu Tianping. But didn't he know that by doing so, his 3 followers of the Green Sea Snakes would be killed? If the 5 Elements sect really killed the 3 spirits out of humiliation and anger, the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan would certainly seek revenge for the smallest grievance, but they would not be able to do anything to the 5 Elements sect that was far away in the central region. Instead, Lu Tianping would probably have to bear the thunderous wrath of the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan first. In fact, after the matter of Wuxing School stealing the water vein of Qingming River was exposed, Sam Ling was almost killed. But for some reason, he survived and was handed over to Tu Gaoshan, who had the highest cultivation among the 5 great Juzi, to watch over him. However, the truth of the matter soon came to light. Jiushuan Tower, which had been besieged by Mara's army for more than 10 years, suddenly had 2 cultivators escape from inside by some unknown means. They brought out the latest news of Jiushuan Tower and the real strength of Mara's army. And these 2 were none other than the first pure yang cultivator among the 2nd-generation cultivators of Jiushuan Tower, Laozu 8th sister Zhu, and the first heir of Jiushuan Tower, master of Yuan Tower, Wei Jin. Although only these 2 people appeared in Jiushuan Tower at this time, they stood on the highest moral ground. The water vein of Qingming River was an important means for Jiushuan Tower to resist the siege of Mara's army. At this time, because of the interference and weakening of Wuxing School, Jiushuan Tower's own defense power was greatly reduced, and they had paid a huge price for this. Wuxing School's move was obviously to take the opportunity to frame Jiushuan Tower. While the whole cultivation world began to help Jiushuan Tower, Wuxing School was undoubtedly condoning the disaster of Mara. Even 8th sister Zhu said something even more shocking. She said, "With the example of Magic Cloud City, our sect has to make the fastest plan. That is, this great disaster of Mara against Jiushuan Tower may also be the result of someone's connivance and guidance. But there is no demon clan force like Endless Mountain in Central Region for such a large scale of Mara's army to gather." Her words directly pointed out that Wuxing School was the driving force behind the siege of Jiushuan Tower by Mara's army. For a moment, the whole cultivation world was in an uproar. Although Wuxing School strongly denied it, its act of stealing the water vein of Qingming River had at least solidified the reputation of taking advantage of the situation. What's more, the disaster of Mara was the common enemy of the whole cultivation world, including both the human and the demon clans. This time, Wishing School's behavior was really despicable. While the whole cultivation world was shocked by Eighth Sister Zhu's accusation of Wishing School, Skyward Pavilion took the lead in showing solidarity with Jiuquan Tower. At the same time, they also sent a pure yang practitioner and 3 grand practitioners up the river to join the rescue of Jiuquan Tower. This was not only to reinforce Jiuquan Tower, but also to test the pressure on Wishing School. After all, most of the water vein of Qingming River had always been divided between Jiuquan Tower and Skyward Pavilion. This time, Wishing School's interference was undoubtedly weakening Skyward Pavilion's interests. Unfortunately, Skyward Pavilion was also in constant trouble at this time. In addition to the areas of influence near the sea and on land that were gradually affected by the disaster of Mara, the Crystal Palace's infiltration into the mainland of the Central Plains was also a headache for Skyward Pavilion. Heavenly Moon Sect had been forced to withdraw all of their strength from the sea. At this time, it was already commendable that they could send a pure yang practitioner and 3 grand practitioners to reinforce Jiuquan Tower. Originally, Lingyun Valley also had some use for the water vein of Qingming River. Unfortunately, Magic Cloud City had been destroyed. At this time, Lingyun Valley was entangled with the Endless Mountains. Although they had shown solidarity, they really could not spare any strength to reinforce Jiuquan Tower. At this time, the cultivation world of the Central Plains could not help but look at Xiyang Palace at the edge of the western wilderness. As a holy land with the deepest hidden strength among the 5 holy lands of the Central Plains, Xiyang Palace's attitude was undoubtedly the most important. However, what was regrettable was that Xiyang Palace did not have the slightest reaction. Just when the cultivation world was guessing why Xiyang Palace was acting like this, a shocking news suddenly came from the western wilderness. The Pegasus clan, the Green-Eyed Golden Condor clan, the Koi clan, and the Rainbow Tiger clan from the western part of the northern ice plains had joined forces to attack Western Wilderness Palace. As the only large human sect in Western Wasteland, the Purple Sun Palace's bridgehead had fallen under the joint attack of the 4 great demon clans. Although the Purple Sun Palace had immediately responded to rescue them, 2 of the 3 great cultivators of Western Wasteland Palace had already died. The remaining one had escorted the last of Western Wasteland Palace's elites to the Purple Sun Palace. However, the forces of the Purple Sun Palace and the human race had all retreated from Western Wasteland after this battle. Chapter 12:24. At this time, Lu Ping did not know that the whole cultivation world was in chaos. Nor did he know that Wishing School's plot for the water vein of Qingming River had been well known all over the world. Because of this, Samling almost died in the hands of Wishing School. At this time, he was taken by Debao into an underground cave, which was dozens of feet deep, to heal his wounds and restore his genuine essence. This series of fierce battles had consumed most of Lu Ping's genuine essence. If it were not for the great improvement of his cultivation after more than 10 years of closed-door training in the water vein of Qingming River, Lu Ping would have collapsed in the face of the continuous battles of Wishing School. Time passed day by day. At this time, Lu Ping was also worried. He did not know how to rescue Samling from Wishing School. He did not even know where Samling was imprisoned at this time. Moreover, at this time, Lu Ping could not inquire about it, because he knew very well that Wishing School must be heavily guarded at this time because they had successfully stolen the water vein of Qingming River. If he were a pure Yang Laozi like Xiao Baiyu, naturally he would not care about Wishing School's vigilance at this time. But if it were Lu Ping, he would not be able to do so. Let's go and have a look first. If it doesn't work, I have to turn to Xiao Baiyu for help. Even if what they are planning at this time can turn the whole cultivation world upside down, I can't care too much about it. Lu Ping secretly made up his mind, but he still had to adjust his strength to the best. Although he did not know what Xiao Baiyu and the others were planning, At least he knew that Xiao Baiyu and the others had already known at this time that Wishing School's planned to steal the water vein of Qingming River, and they would definitely not let Wishing School succeed. At that time, there was bound to be a big battle. At that time, whether he joined Xiao Baiyu's gang or not, it would be the best time to rescue Sam Ling. In fact, this time did not make Lu Ping wait for long. Only about half a month later, Lu Ping suddenly felt the whole earth was suddenly shaking. Lu Ping looked at Debao, who was also surprised and confused, and reached out his hand to summon Linglong's wine tripod, and asked, "Linglong, do you know what is going on?" The wine tripod fell to the ground, and Linglong lay on the edge of the tripod for a moment, and said, "What else is going on? Someone is communicating with the earth vein, and it is the large-scale kind, many times more brilliant than your method of expanding the island with the blue seas into mulberry fields formula." Lu Ping was stunned, as if he suddenly thought of something, and said, "It is Wishing School, they are going to open up the Green Jade Canal." "Open up the canal?" Debao was even more confused, and said, "Isn't Wishing School going to communicate with the water vein of Qingming River and merge it with the water vein of Yulon River? Why do they want to communicate with the earth vein?" Lu Ping knocked hard on Debao's head, and ignored Debao, who was gritting his teeth and screaming in pain, and said angrily, "Where is your cleverness in the past? If you want to communicate with the two water veins, you have to first open up the canal, and then connect the two water veins together. Doesn't that mean that the opening of the Green Jade Canal requires digging ditches?" Debao rubbed his head, and said, "Then just dig it. There is no need to connect with the earth vein, right?" Lu Ping was a little speechless, and then he remembered that although Debao was an earth cultivator, he was an authentic demon cultivator born overseas, and his knowledge of the vast land of the central region was very shallow. So he explained with a smile, "Wishing School can't wait to communicate with the two water veins secretly, so how could they dare to openly dig ditches? Naturally, the method they used was to survey the earth vein first, and then set up a formation to connect the earth vein from Wishing School to Qingming River. That is why they finally started the plan to communicate with the two water veins after Jioshuan Tower was besieged by Mara's army for more than 10 years. After all the arrangements were completed, now Wishing School activated the formation, and all the earth veins along the way will be corrected. The ground will collapse automatically to form ditches, and the two water veins will be connected along the ditches. In this way, although the water veins of the two water veins have not been connected, at least after the water veins are connected, it will be much easier to communicate with the water veins again." Lu Ping's explanation was clear enough, but Debao knew many of Lu Ping's secrets, so he asked, "Now that Wishing School doesn't have the spirit treasure, how will they communicate with the two water veins? You have to know that ever since the heavens were split open, there have been many sects that thought of communicating with the two great water veins, and it's not like there haven't been any that have implemented it. However, the two great water veins' strange incompatible characteristics are something that even the true spirit ancestor can't do anything about." Lu Ping shook his head and said, "I don't know, but Wishing School has been planning for many years. How could they not have considered this? This time, the appearance of Xiao Baiyu and the pure Yang Laozu is obviously to stop Wishing School from connecting the two water veins. It can be seen that Wishing School must have found a way to merge the two water veins. Otherwise, they wouldn't have mobilized so many people." Of course, Lu Ping didn't know what method Wishing School used, but he summoned the spirit treasure from the core space. Praying Mantis still looked very arrogant, and the two big blades on Lu Ping's shoulders were cutting the air back and forth from time to time. "Communicate with the water veins?" Hearing Lu Ping's question, Praying Mantis was still confused, but then he shook his head and said, "I'm not good at that, but I'm very capable of cutting something. Whether it's the earth veins, the water veins, the fire veins, the spiritual veins, or anything like that, I'm sure I can cut it accurately, and I can cut it more beautifully than anyone else, without any sloppiness." Lu Ping thought for a while, and then he put his divine thoughts into the spirit treasure and carefully examined it for a long time. Even Lu Ping himself didn't know how many times he had studied the mystery of the body of Praying Mantis. Although this time, after more than 10 years of closed-door training, Lu Ping's cultivation and strength had improved a lot, he still gained nothing. Sometimes, Lu Ping himself even suspected whether the spirit treasure 2 parts was some kind of smoke bomb deliberately released by Wishing School, or perhaps it was used to attract the existence of something, because in Lu Ping's view, the spirit treasure 2 parts was just an ordinary second tribulation spirit treasure. At most, the material and power of the spirit treasure were a little stronger than ordinary second tribulation spirit treasures. Apart from that, he really couldn't see any other mystery. Lu Ping shook his head, not knowing whether it was because of disappointment, or something else, or perhaps there was indeed some secret hidden in it that Lu Ping hadn't discovered yet. After all, legend had it that the spirit treasure 2 parts was a treasure left by the founder of the Broken Water sect in Wishing School. After all, the Broken Water Laozu was a being who had achieved the real spirit. If there was any mystery left in it, it was not something that Lu Ping, a minor repairs at the middle Dharma level, could find. After all, after this spirit treasure was lost from Wishing School, it had been passed around several times in the hands of many great divines in the world of practice. If there was any mystery in it, it would have been found out by them long ago. Or maybe they could take advantage of this time to communicate with the water vein in Wishing School to take a look. This spirit treasure came from Wishing School. If there was really some secret of the Broken Water sect hidden in it, and this time Wishing School communicated with the 2 water veins to solve the hidden flaw of the Broken Water sect, then this communication with the water vein was an opportunity to thoroughly find out the hidden secret of the spirit treasure 2 parts. This idea flashed in Lu Ping's mind. Of course, he knew that this so-called opportunity was actually a risk, even no different from courting death. Lu Ping turned his palm, and the 2 parts of the spirit treasure disappeared. Just when Lu Ping was pondering whether he should secretly check it or even take a look at it from a distance, Ling Long, who had been placed by Lu Ping's side, popped her head out of the wine tripod again. With a strange look on her face, she said, "Brother, it's such a strange feeling. Did you notice anything?" Lu Ping was stunned and said, "What?" Ling Long glanced at De Bao and saw that De Bao was also confused, so she said, "Ling Long felt a call, a mysterious feeling, as if there was a powerful and superior thing that wanted to force Ling Long to surrender. Besides, Ling Long also felt that if she hadn't been refined by you, I'm afraid that she would have already been unable to control herself, and would have been called by that mysterious existence." In Lu Ping's eyes, Ling Long's words were extremely mysterious. It could be seen that she was serious, and it seemed that she was not joking. Especially when Lu Ping summoned the other spirit treasures one by one and asked them, but except for Ling Long, no one had such a mysterious feeling. Lu Ping was even more shocked in his heart. Lu Ping thought for a moment, and finally seemed to have made up his mind. He said, "Ling Long, can you sense where this mysterious feeling is coming from? Perhaps we should secretly go and take a look." A few rays of light flew from the direction of the 9 mystical tower towards the place where Lu Ping had clashed with the Wishing School cultivators. An irascible voice yelled, oh no, the 9 mystical tower is really down on its luck. Or is it because the Laozu sect has done too many immoral things? From what I know, the 9 mystical tower has imprisoned and raised many top-level demons as their spiritual slaves. They can be killed at any time to raise their cultivation, strength, and lifespan. This is extremely cruel. I'm afraid this is retribution for provoking such a large-scale Mara army. Just now, when I ran over to take a look, even I, a great pure Yang Laozu, felt my scalp go numb. If I hadn't reacted in time, I might have been surrounded and killed by 2 heavenly demons and a dozen or so Asuras. When the rays of light dissipated, it was Xiao Baiyu and the other pure Yang Laozu sects. The long-winded words from before were naturally spoken by bright ape Yuan Pokong. At this moment, the pure Yang Laozu sects all had ugly expressions on their faces. When Yuan Xiaotian heard Yuan Pokong's nonsense, she couldn't help but say, "You demons have killed fewer people? When it comes to cruelty, the human race cannot compare to you demons. If the 9 mystical tower being besieged by Mara's army is retribution, could it be that Mara's army is in cahoots with the demon race? These words were a little harsh. Yuan Pokong had a short temper and was about to explode when he heard this. Xiao Baiyu frowned and said, "Okay, now is not the time to talk about this. We have some understanding of the situation at the Nine Mystical Tower." Compared to what Eighth Sister Zhu said about the strength of Mara's army, I'm afraid that Mara's army is still hiding some of their strength. Yuan Pokong had nowhere to vent his anger, and he cursed. Mother *Ker, even Moro has learned to hide his strength in these days. Yuan Xiaotian snorted coldly and didn't reply. However, the pure young Laozu sects all had ugly expressions on their faces. 7 Laozu sects opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but at this moment, their expressions changed in unison. Muffled rumbling sounds came from far away, and the tremors naturally couldn't shake these existences. In the end, it was Feng Lu who still had a cold expression on his face and said, "They have made a move." Chapter 12:25. They did it! Yuan Pokong suddenly flew into a rage and said, "Damn it, how dare those bastards from Wuxing School? Do they want to be enemies with the whole world?" After Eighth Sister Zhu and the others broke the news that Wuxing School had stolen the Qingming River's water vein, the whole cultivation world was already in turmoil. The accusation of taking advantage of the situation was just a means by which Eighth Sister Zhu wanted to gain the moral upper hand. The groundless accusation of leading Mara's army to besiege Nine Xuanwu Tower was just a means by which Eighth Sister Zhu caused the cultivation world to be dissatisfied with Nine Xuanwu Tower. Eighth Sister Zhu's ultimate goal was to focus the entire cultivation world's attention on Wuxing School, and at the same time, encourage others to destroy Wuxing School's plan to connect the 2 water veins. Qingming River's water vein was the world's largest water vein. Not to mention how much Nine Xuanwu Tower and Skyward Pavilion had gained from it, there were countless great divines who had cultivated in seclusion in Qingming River. Wuxing School had secretly stolen the Qingming River's water vein. Previously, these great divines had been forced out of the water vein by the turbulence of the water vein and had to stop cultivating. But soon, they heard that Mara's army had besieged Nine Xuanwu Tower, and Nine Xuanwu Tower had to use the Qingming River's water vein wantonly in order to protect themselves. This was naturally understandable. But now that the truth had been revealed, it was clear that Wuxing School had interfered with their cultivation. Moreover, after stealing a part of the Qingming River's water vein, it would inevitably affect the use of the entire Qingming River's water vein. This was undoubtedly bad news for these great divines who were mostly individual cultivators. Damn it, these rich and powerful holy lands usually took advantage of the best resources in the cultivation world by force. This time, they didn't even let go of the Qingming River's water vein. It was already difficult for itinerant cultivators like them to cultivate. To be able to reach the level of great divinity, the amount of effort they put in private was often many times more difficult than the cultivators in the noble holy lands. However, in their view, the noble holy lands were obviously continuing to be aggressive, reducing the living space of itinerant cultivators like them in the cultivation world. Therefore, they were very unhappy, especially about Wuxing School's behavior. However, if they wanted these old and sophisticated individual cultivators to cause trouble for Wuxing School, it was naturally impossible. But if someone took the initiative to cause trouble for Wuxing School, these unrestrained great divines who were individual cultivators would not mind hitting them when they were down. Now, there was no doubt that Eighth Sister Zhu was the best candidate to take the lead. She was born in Nine Mystical Tower, and was also a cultivator in the Holy Land. She had passed 3 thunder tribulations and was a direct victim of Wuxing School's theft of the Qingming River's water vein. No matter from which point of view, Eighth Sister Zhu was the most suitable candidate for those who were unhappy with Wuxing School's behavior. Eighth Sister Zhu did not seem to have any objection to this. On the contrary, compared to helping Nine Mystical Tower, which was besieged by Mara's army, Eighth Sister Zhu seemed to be more interested in destroying Wuxing School's theft of the Qingming River's water vein. However, at this time, the Five Elements sect was like an arrow on a bow that had to be released. In order to obtain the water vein of the Qingming River, the Five Elements sect had planned for a long time, and the specific implementation had been prepared for more than 10 years. In fact, in order to obtain this opportunity, the Five Elements sect might have paid a lot more than what was widely speculated. If Wuxing School had not secretly manipulated 9 mystical towers' disaster, few people in the cultivation world would have believed it at this time. Just as Yuan Pokong was clamoring to go with Xiao Baiyu and the other 3 pure yang cultivators, Laozu, to make trouble with Wuxing School, 7 fans Laozu and Yuan Shaotian also showed the same intention. Wuxing School was already powerful enough as one of the 5 holy lands of Middle Mainland. If the water vein's defect was fixed, Wuxing School's overall strength would be improved again. This was obviously what Tianxian sect, which was currently suppressed by Wuxing School, did not want to see. Therefore, 7 fans Laozu obviously did not want to see Wuxing School succeed. Similarly, Yuan clan, the world's #1 aristocratic family, and could even be said to be the world's #1 major force. This was because Wuxing School was located not too far away from Yuan clan. Although Yuan clan had always been aloof, they could not afford to offend Wuxing School, a holy land in the world. However, at the very least, they had to make the snoring sound of this other person next to their bed, when he slept soundly. However, at this time, the 3 of them mostly looked at Xiao Baiyu's expression, as if these supreme existences, whose names shook the cultivation world, had to follow Xiao Baiyu's lead. As for Feng Lu, another pure yang cultivator, Laozu, his status was even more aloof. People from Spirit Beast sect had always been very eccentric, and he was a man of few words. However, they all knew that Feng Lu seemed to have been invited by Xiao Baiyu this time. On the surface, Xiao Baiyu seemed to be very polite to Feng Lu, but in fact, Feng Lu had been silently supporting all of Xiao Baiyu's decisions. Moreover, Feng Lu was not a kind person. When he stirred up the cultivation world as an Empyrean wayfarer, and bathed the world in blood, the other 3 had clearly seen his strength. Perhaps, except for Xiao Baiyu, who was the most abnormal guy, no one dared to say that they could defeat him. Since the 2 most powerful people had reached an agreement, the gang formed by the 5 pure Yang Laozu clans could only be led by Xiao Baiyu. Xiao Baiyu closed his eyes and said nothing. Beside him, Yuan Pokong suddenly lost his calm and said impatiently, Old Xiao, what's wrong with you? You just watched Wuxing School steal the water vein. If they succeed in one vein, Wuxing School's strength will definitely increase greatly. In 100 years it will be able to stand side by side with Xiyang Palace and Crystal Palace. In 500 years, its strength will even surpass the 2 palaces. Xiao Baiyu suddenly opened his eyes. A look of shock appeared in the eyes of the world's #1 pure yang. Beside him, the extremely pure Yang Laozu clans were all experienced in observing people's expressions. Seeing that Xiao Baiyu, who had always been calm and confident, actually lost his composure for a moment, they all looked solemn. Yuan Shaotian hesitated for a moment before asking, Brother Xiao, did you notice something? Although these pure Yang Laozu clans were all arrogant, they had no choice but to behave in front of Xiao Baiyu. Xiao Baiyu was far above them in both scheming and strength. This battle is not going to be easy. Qi Fan Laozu frowned and asked Xiao Baiyu, Why? Have the 5 pure yang from Wuxing School come out in full force? Xiao Baiyu smiled bitterly and said, It's even more powerful than that. This time, not only Qi Fan Laozu, but even Feng Lu, who had always been cold, had a change of expression. He said, Supreme powerhouses? The few pure yang cultivators did not say anything. They knew very well what supreme powerhouses meant to them. However, Xiao Baiyu smiled, but his expression did not look too good. He said, It's not the one from Wuxing School. I'm afraid they've invited the biggest wine cup in the cultivation world that's used to suppress sections. Moreover, all the pure yang 5 disciples from Wuxing School are indeed here. The 5 pure yang words from Wuxing School naturally referred to the 5 pure yang cultivators from Wuxing School. The inheritance of Wuxing School had always been strange. Usually, only one pure yang cultivator would be born in each generation of each of the 5 lineages of Wuxing school. Therefore, except when the new and the old changed, there would usually only be 5 pure yang Laozu clans in Wuxing school. However, it was not easy to gather these 5 pure yang Laozu clans, especially when the water-cut lineage, which was pointed out by Broken Water Laozu, became more and more obvious. The inheritance of the water-cut lineage was often interrupted, and the pure yang cultivators of the water-cut lineage had failed several times. This caused the pure yang 5 disciples of Wuxing school to only be the pure yang 4 disciples for a long time. This was also the reason why Wuxing school insisted on making up for the defects of the water-cut lineage completely after the water-cut lineage finally produced a pure yang cultivator. In the past thousands of years, it seemed that this was the best time. However, the 5 pure yang Laozu clans, in addition to their excellent cultivation and strength, the most important thing was that none of them could join hands to set up the secret Tao soldier formation of Wuxing school. How powerful would the formation set up by the 5 pure yang Laozu clans as Tao soldiers be? It was recorded clearly in the cultivation world. It can rival the strong of the Supreme Master. What was the strong of the Supreme Master? Who could make the pure yang Laozu clans change their expressions and make Xiao Baiyu, who was the best pure yang cultivator in the world, smile bitterly? This time, Wuxing school's stealing of the Qingming River's water vein had been exposed. Eighth Sister Zhu and those sects and hidden forces who were unwilling to let Wuxing school go further would inevitably join hands to attack. If Wuxing school didn't want their more than 10 years of planning to go to waste, they could only take it by force. However, Wuxing school was very clear about what kind of situation they were going to face. Almost half of the cultivation world was against them. On the surface, there were already 2 pure yang Laozu clans from 9 Mysteries Tower and Skyward Pavilion. Who else was hidden? Would Laozu of Tianxian sect, who had been suppressed by Wuxing school, come? Would Xiao Baiyu, who had participated in the siege of Wuxing school in the Qingming River, come? Would Xiao Baiyu invite a few people to come here? Would the powerful divines who were hiding in the water vein of the Qingming River come? No matter how he thought about it, the 5 pure yang patriarchs of the 5 elements sect had no choice but to join forces. It seemed that only this one could hold the situation. After all, once the 5 pure yang patriarchs set up the pure yang 5 elements formation, they would be able to challenge even supreme beings. How many pure yang patriarchs would they have to fear? Pure yang cultivators also cherished their lives. If Wuxing school was determined to win this time, who would risk their lives to fight against Wuxing school? What's more, Wuxing school had brought something with them this time. It was a treasure that had stabilized Wuxing school's fate for tens of thousands of years. It had been worshipped by Wuxing school since the 5 Laozu clans of Wuxing school founded their sect. With this treasure, Wuxing school believed that no one could stop Wuxing school's request for the Qingming River's water vein this time, unless the strong masters of the other holy lands took the risk and appeared. Chapter 1226. Were there any existences in the cultivation world that had achieved true spirit? Lu Ping himself had believed from the beginning that there was a Laozu that had achieved true spirit in this world, but he had never been able to verify it. Lu Ping had once asked Celestial Phenomenon Laozu about this question. Although Celestial Phenomenon Laozu had never truly verified these things, he still believed that Laozu, who had achieved true spirit, existed in the cultivation world. Although a Grand Ginseng Laozu had appeared in Jinling's history, Grand Ginseng Laozu had only appeared for a short time, like a shooting star. After achieving true spirit, he had disappeared without a trace and did not leave behind too much information for Jinling. Otherwise, even if Grand Ginseng Laozu, who had achieved true spirit, had stayed in Jinling for 30 to 50 years, the foundation he had left behind would not have taken Jinling 6,000 years to finally have the opportunity to become a large sect. It had to be said that Grand Ginseng Laozu had contributed a lot to Jinling back then. Before he had achieved true spirit, he had already been the pure yang Laozu, whose name had shaken the entire cultivation world. This kind of person had once raised Jinling's strength and made a huge contribution to the growth of its foundation. Originally, with the things that Grand Ginseng Laozu had brought to Jinling, it was completely possible for Jinling to become a large sect 6,000 years ago and pass down its strong foundation in one fell swoop. However, at that time, Grand Ginseng Laozu had wholeheartedly wanted to reach the true spirit realm, so Jinling had naturally supported him with all their strength. Moreover, they were looking forward to Grand Ginseng Laozu becoming a true spirit. Jinling's strength and status would increase in Jinling, even suppressing the only large sect in the Northern Sea, the Fei Ling sect. In order for this Grand Ginseng to successfully reach the true spirit realm, the entire Jinling could be said to have used all their strength to help Grand Ginseng Laozu. The foundation that Grand Ginseng Laozu had accumulated for Jinling was not only taken out at this time, he had also placed all the foundation accumulated by the previous generations of Jinling cultivators on Grand Ginseng Laozu. Jinling was gambling on the rewards Grand Ginseng Laozu would receive after successfully reaching the true spirit realm. As long as Grand Ginseng Laozu reached the true spirit realm, in the eyes of the entire Jinling, Jinling would definitely welcome an unprecedented glory. But the final result made all of Jinling want to cry. Grand Ginseng Laozu was indeed worthy of being the most outstanding cultivator in Jinling's 10,000 years of inheritance. It was true that he had successfully reached the true spirit realm, but before Jinling could excitedly prepare for the most glorious moment since the founding of the sect, just a year later, Grand Ginseng Laozu had no choice but to leave this world. The situation at that time was extremely sudden. It was said that as soon as Grand Ginseng Laozu stabilized his true spirit realm, he was immediately strongly rejected by this world. In order to not be destroyed by this world, Grand Ginseng Laozu had no choice but to leave the northern ice plains, following the footprints left by the seventh patriarch when the heavens were first opened. Grand Ginseng Laozu's sudden departure was undoubtedly a huge blow to the confident Jinling. Jinling, who had just seen the hope of rising, was immediately suppressed by the sects of the Northern Sea, led by the Flying Spirit sect. Fortunately, even though Grand Ginseng Laozu had only reached the true spirit realm for a short year, he had left behind many methods for Jinling to protect itself, allowing them to recover from the suppression of the sects of the Northern Sea. But it also completely destroyed Jinling's dream of becoming a large sect, until today, 6,000 years later. And Lu Ping had asked Chu Haitian, Sang Yu, Xie Tianyang and the others about this question, but they did not believe that true spirit adepts existed in this world. Because they came from the holy lands of the noble clans, they had produced many true spirit adepts, so they had enough right to speak on this matter. In this world, the movement of true spirit adepts was too big, so big that this world could not tolerate the existence of true spirit adepts. Therefore, every true spirit adept could be detected by almost all the Dharma adepts and above in the cultivation world, so once a true spirit adept was achieved, it was extremely difficult to hide it. Not only that, it was very difficult for a true spirit adept to stay in this world for too long. Therefore, in the holy lands of the noble clans, any pure young adept who had the confidence to achieve true spirit adept would not easily break through to the next realm. Because once they broke through to the next realm and achieved true spirit, it often meant that they would have to leave this world. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, the pure Yan Laozu in the holy lands of the noble clans were not willing to achieve true spirit adepts early. Only then did Lu Ping understand. Originally, that Taishan Laozu of his own sect had been too impatient. Back then, Jinling had even boasted that Taishan Laozu was a genius in the world. In just 100 years after achieving pure Yang, he had succeeded in becoming a true spirit adept. He was truly a rare genius in the cultivation world. But from Lu Ping's point of view, if Taishan Laozu had been able to suppress his desire to achieve true spirit adept before he had advanced to pure Yang, he could have completely stopped at pure Yang cultivation for 200 to 300 years. With such a pure Yang Laozu overseeing things, in addition to the 200 to 300 years of accumulation, Jinling would have already advanced to a large sect 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Why would he have waited until now? In reality, Jinling had already understood this logic. However, so what if he understood it? Becoming a true spirit adept was not something that could be achieved easily. One only needed to look at those large sects that had existed for a long time in the cultivation world to understand. Before Fei Ling's sect had been destroyed, it had nearly 20,000 years of history. It had produced 3 true spirit Laozu, while Ing Tian's sect had produced 4. Furthermore, 2 of them had been the founders of different sects Laozu. As for other sects like Tianxian sect, Skyrand, and Heavenly Moon sect, they had only produced 3 to 5 true spirit Laozu. As for sects like the Northern Alliance, not a single true spirit Laozu had appeared. Of course, there were also large sects like Purple Talisman Pavilion, Wind Thunder Island, Magic Cloud City, Taishian sect, and Western Desolation Palace that had been supported by the 6 sacred lands. Due to too many restrictions, they were unable to break free from the shadow of the sacred lands. Although they had the strength of large sects, they had never produced a pure yang or true spirit Laozu. Of course, if these sects could produce such a talented person who could break free from the sacred land's secret control, then they would be like Tianxian sect and Ing Tian sect, breaking free from the sacred land's control and becoming truly independent large sections. In reality, for those large sects, it was a good thing that Laozu had become a pure yang. However, if this Laozu insisted on breaking through to the true spirit realm, it would become a burden to the sect he was in. Becoming a true spirit was a huge consumption of cultivation resources for a pure yang Laozu. Even for those large sects with deep legacies and resources, it was an unbearable burden. 6,000 years ago, Junling had already prepared enough resources to become a large sect. However, because Taishan Laozu had advanced to the true spirit realm, most of these resources had been used up. In the end, Taishan Laozu had left this world a year after becoming a true spirit, and Junling had completely sunk into oblivion. Under the combined suppression of the various sects in the North Sea, they were almost annihilated. This situation also existed for the large sections. However, those large sects had finally learned their lesson. Whenever a pure yang cultivator appeared, they would do their best to delay the growth of their cultivation. At the same time, they would do their best to collect large amounts of cultivation resources in preparation for becoming a true spirit. However, once a cultivator became a pure yang cultivator, their cultivation would constantly increase even if they did not deliberately cultivate. This was because at this time, the Dharma form in pure yang Laozu's heart space had passed through the 3rd lightning tribulation and absorbed enough pure yang qi. The pure yang Dharma form was constantly transforming. Once it completely fused with the body, it would become a true spirit. At that moment, the pure yang patriarch had no choice but to advance to the true spirit stage. Otherwise, if the Dharma idol and the fleshly body were to fuse for too long, the thick pure yang energy would turn the fleshly body into nothingness and the cultivator would fall. In order to become a true spirit before he died, pure yang Laozu had no choice but to prepare a large amount of cultivation resources so that the Dharma form that had fused with the body could become a true spirit in a short time and avoid the fate of dying. In fact, when many pure yang Laozu reached this step, it was no longer a matter of whether or not their sects were willing to prepare a large amount of cultivation resources for them to become true spirits. Under the pressure of pure yang Laozu, their sects had no choice but to prepare these things for them. Every cultivator who reached the pure yang stage stood at the top of their sections. It could even be said that they had reached the point where they could summon clouds and rain with a flip of their hand. In front of them, all the traditions and rules of the sect had lost their binding effect. Even if they had selfish motives, who in the sect would dare to oppose them? In the cultivation world, there were many sects that were on the verge of death in order to advance to a true spirit after they had produced a pure yang cultivator. There were many sects that even fell apart. As a small medium-sized sect, Junling was able to maintain its original strength after pure yang Laozu advanced to a true spirit. From this point of view, besides the fact that Junling had indeed prepared sufficient resources at that time, it could be said that pure yang Laozu had considered a lot for Junling. Although Lu Ping had heard these things from his good friends such as Chu Haitian, Sang Yu, and Xia Tianyang, Lu Ping could naturally distinguish many loopholes and doubts from these information. Many of the things they said were even avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial. They only talked about how pure Yang Laozu in some large sects and large tribes in the cultivation world dealt with the relationship between his own cultivation and the sections. However, they obviously avoided talking about how the 6 sacred lands and large tribes like the Green Sea Snake dealt with these matters. However, he also knew that most of these things were related to the secrets of their respective sects and families. It was already very commendable that they were willing to share so much information with Lu Ping. Lu Ping carefully noted down the information and did not ask any more questions. In his heart, he only felt gratitude towards these few good friends of his. This was also the reason why Lu Ping had always spared no effort in collecting all kinds of cultivation resources. He was very ambitious. Although he had only been a late core forging adept at the beginning, and now he was only a mid-dharma adept, he longed to advance to a pure yang cultivator and achieve a true spirit. Therefore, he had to start preparing for the future from now on. This was also the reason why Lu Ping dared to risk offending the 9 mystical tower and sneak into the longevity cave. Now, he had to face another sacred land in the Central Plains, Wuxing School. Once again, he had his eyes on something. He wanted to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. Chapter 12:27. Lu Ping was so angry that he kept cursing Wuxing School in his heart. If they hadn't forced him out of the water vein of Qingming River, it wouldn't have been so difficult for him to enter the water vein of Qingming River again. It wasn't easy to enter the water vein of Qingming River. Even though Lu Ping had been practicing in the water vein for more than 10 years, he still couldn't find the way to enter it again. Lu Ping sank his whole body into Qingming River, including his mind. He tried very hard to capture the trace of the water vein in Qingming River, but he still couldn't succeed. If it was in the past, Lu Ping wouldn't even be able to detect a trace of the Qingming River's water vein. But now, even though he was still unable to enter the water vein, he was able to vaguely capture a trace of the water vein. However, this trace was always indistinct, causing Lu Ping to be unable to follow it all the way. "Brother, maybe I can help you." Linglong tilted her head and said to Lu Ping. However, from her expression, it seemed that even she wasn't sure. Lu Ping patted his head and said, "I forgot that Linglong can control the spiritual vein, so it should be helpful to find the water vein that contains the essence of the whole Qingming River." However, looking at Linglong's thoughtful expression, Lu Ping couldn't help but tease her. "What's wrong, Linglong? You don't look confident enough?" Linglong nodded and said, "If it was in the past, I'm afraid Linglong wouldn't be able to find the water vein. But now, maybe Linglong can find the water vein with the help of that mysterious feeling." "Oh?" Lu Ping was more and more curious about the thing that could make Linglong feel such a magical feeling. However, according to the current situation, the direction of the magical thing seemed to be in the direction of the green jade canal that Wuxing School used to connect the 2 water veins. So, it was very likely that the thing belonged to Wuxing School. Linglong was floating above Lu Ping's head, shining with a faint white light. With the support of Linglong's wine cauldron, Lu Ping's divine thoughts spread out in a more subtle way. Soon, he captured the trace of the water vein of Qingming River again. However, the fluctuation of the water vein was still very faint, so Lu Ping still couldn't enter it directly. But what was different from before was that this time, Lu Ping didn't have to worry about losing this trace of water vein. Although the fluctuation was very faint, Lu Ping could still track it with the help of the wine cauldron. However, it was still very difficult to enter it again. Lu Ping used his divine powers to turn his body into flowing water. With the help of Linglong's wine cauldron, he flowed around the water vein that he was tracking, but he still couldn't enter it. At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly sensed a huge breath flashing past the trace of water vein that he was tracking. Lu Ping was startled, and his body, which had turned into flowing water, suddenly retreated several feet. Only then did he realize that this breath wasn't coming for him. Instead, it flashed past the water vein. Obviously, it was a powerful being who could easily enter and exit the water vein of Qingning River. At this time, Lu Ping didn't have to think to know that the powerful being who passed through the water vein was heading for the Green Jade Canal of Wishing School. However, after Wishing School opened up the Green Jade Canal, almost the entire water vein of Qingning River was in turmoil. Few people could enter it again. Even if there were powerful beings who could barely enter the water vein, they couldn't concentrate on their cultivation under such turbulence. This was also why the news that Wishing School stole the water vein of Qingning River was revealed by 8th Sister Zhu, which caused so many cultivators to hate them. However, at this time, Lu Ping didn't know that the news that Wishing School stole the water vein of Qingning River had already caused a stir in the cultivation world. When he sensed that a powerful being was heading for Wishing School along the water vein, there was only fear left in his heart. Could it be that the fact that Wishing School stole the water vein of Qingning River had been exposed? If so, would Wishing School vent their anger on him? Wouldn't Samling be dead by now? Just when Lu Ping was still thinking about these things, the breath that flashed in the water vein before suddenly appeared again. Naturally, Lu Ping was facing a formidable enemy. Unexpectedly, the breath emitted by this breath was not hostile, but seemed to be a kind guidance. Lu Ping hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he followed this breath and turned into a stream of water. After a while, not only did Lu Ping once again sense the direction of the water vein, but he also found that the trace of the water vein was not only the previous trace, but an extremely majestic one. Even the water vein of Qingning River that Lu Ping used to cultivate in seclusion was far inferior to the one Lu Ping saw now. Lu Ping gathered all his attention, turned into a stream of water again, and threw it into this water vein. Soon, he had entered an extremely rich essence of the water vein. This was the water vein of Qingning River that Lu Ping had always wanted to enter but could not. At this time, Lu Ping wanted to follow the breath to find the person who helped him. He wanted to thank the person, and at the same time, he wanted to know why the person helped him. However, the person's breath quickly dissipated in this water vein. Before Lu Ping could figure out the person's identity, the person had already disappeared along the water vein. Fortunately, Lu Ping was already familiar with this person's breath. When Lu Ping saw this person again, he would definitely be able to recognize him. The person who helped Lu Ping was clearly far stronger than Lu Ping. After helping Lu Ping enter the water vein, he did not stop and continued to move along the water vein. This speed was clearly not something that Lu Ping could match, and perhaps this person did not care. In his eyes, all of this was just a casual effort. At this time, the water vein was still fluctuating violently. If Lu Ping did not have the help of Linglong's wine cauldron, it was likely that he would not have been able to stand in the water vein at all. He would have been thrown out by the violent fluctuations like before. Although Lu Ping could barely stand in the water vein, if he wanted to focus on cultivating in such violent turbulence, not to mention Lu Ping, even Xiao Baiyu would not be able to do it. Lu Ping composed himself. After familiarizing himself with the water vein of Qingning River again, he began to follow the water vein towards the direction of the violent fluctuations. At the same time, somewhere on the Qingning River, a faint smoke spread up along the river under the wind, and then the smoke suddenly and strangely stopped in the river wind. Then a layer of water mist at the front gradually condensed, and the outline of a person gradually became clear. It was Xiao Baiyu, the sword sage of the sky cracking sword. After Xiao Baiyu appeared, he quietly hovered above the river. Soon Yuan Pokong's irritated voice came from behind. "Why aren't you moving? If you don't move, Wishing School will draw the water vein." Xiao Baiyu raised his arm and made a shushing gesture behind him. Then, he just hovered in the air without moving. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Baiyu suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the river dozens of feet away from him. He said, "Since you're here, why don't you come out?" There was a flash of light where Xiao Baiyu was looking at. A man and a woman, two pure yang cultivators, appeared on the river and looked at Xiao Baiyu from afar. The woman was none other than pure yang Laozu of 9 Mystical Tower, 8th Sister Zhu, who had previously stirred up a storm in the cultivation world. As for the man, he was an old man with white hair and a beard. However, his eyes were bright and spirited, and he looked at Xiao Baiyu with a gaze that was like two sharp swords. However, Xiao Baiyu did not care at all. He smiled and said, "I thought you might come, but I didn't expect Mr. Shimin to be with you." The old man next to Eighth Sister Zhu was pure Yang Laozu Shimin Mingyu, who had been sent by Skyward Pavilion to reinforce 9 Mystical Tower. He was a first-generation cultivator with a long history in the cultivation world. Even Xiao Baiyu had to respectfully address him as Mr. Shimin when he saw him. At this moment, Shimin Mingyu Laozu's gaze only paused on Xiao Baiyu. When he heard his greeting, he only nodded slightly. Then, he looked behind Xiao Baiyu. Obviously, he had already discovered the other people hidden in the void behind Xiao Baiyu. However, Yuan Pokong and the others did not deliberately hide their figures. Although Shimin Mingyu had discovered their traces, he could not detect their identities. Therefore, after taking a glance, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked away again. Eighth Sister Zhu was obviously shocked by Shimin Mingyu Laozu's secret message. She casually thought of something, and her face suddenly became gloomy. She said to Xiao Baiyu, "Don't think that I don't know what you're going to do. I've known what you're thinking since more than 200 years ago. But now, I'm afraid that wishing school's matter is also your goal. Now that the pure Yang 5 masters are here, I won't say any more nonsense. The water vein of Qiming River must not fall into the hands of wishing school. Let's join forces this time. What do you think?" Xiao Baiyu touched his nose with a little embarrassment, and seemed to be thinking, but Eighth Sister Zhu was already impatient. She said loudly, "Yes or no? Can you hurry up? Don't think that I don't know that those people you invited are not here for this matter. You're dawdling like a woman." A tyrannical aura suddenly soared from behind Xiao Baiyu. Xiao Baiyu coughed, and wiped his back. That aura seemed to have been erased by him in an instant. However, Eighth Sister Zhu and Shimin Mingyu, the 2 pure Yang cultivators, changed their expressions in an instant. They were not only shocked by the violent aura that was obviously at the pure Yang level, but also by the fact that Lu Ping could suppress the strength of a pure Yang aura with a wave of his hand. When Xiao Baiyu saw that the 2 people's expressions changed in an instant, he smiled and said, "Although the pure Yang 5 elements formation of the pure Yang 5 masters is magical, I think there are many great divines here this time. As long as you and Mr. Shimin take the lead, there will be many people who are willing to take action. Why do you come to me?" Chapter 1228. Wishing Schools. Pure Yang formation of 5 elements, under the cooperation of the 5 pure Yang practitioners, could exert a strength comparable to that of a supreme master who had achieved the true spirit. This was also an important weight for Wishing School to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Crystal Palace and the Xiang Palace among the 6 Holy Lands. However, since the defects of the inheritance of the Water-Cut branch became more and more obvious, the inheritance of the 5 pure Yang practitioners of the 5 pure Yang elements in Wishing School often could not be kept intact. The pure Yang Laozu of the Water-Cut branch could not be inherited normally, which also made the pure Yang formation of 5 elements unable to be performed from time to time because of the breakage of the pure Yang practitioners in the Water-Cut branch, which became an important reason for the decline of the strength of Wishing School. Because the inheritance of the pure Yang formation of 5 elements could only be obtained by 5 Laozu who had almost reached the pure Yang level at the same time. In this way, because of the defects of the inheritance of the Water-Cut branch, the pure Yang practitioners of the Water-Cut branch either appeared very late or were simply broken. This made this inheritance, which could be comparable to that of a true spirit cultivator, unable to be passed on completely. This time, a genius practitioner also appeared in the Water-Cut branch of Wishing School. This person did not affect his cultivation because of the defects of the Water-Cut branch. Instead, he smoothly reached the pure Yang level like the practitioners of the other 4 branches and accepted the inheritance of the pure Yang formation of 5 elements. This made Wishing School form a complete pure yang formation again after more than 1,000 years. Because of this, Wishing School tried to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make up for the defects of the water-cut branch, so that the inheritance of the water-cut branch would not be broken like before. Because not everyone could be as amazing as the current generation of water-cut Laozu. Although 8th Sister Xu had stirred up a storm in the cultivation world and colluded with others to destroy the 5 Elements sect's plan to steal the Qingming River's water vein, the 5 Elements sect seemed to be determined to get it this time. The Pure Yang Quintet had descended together, as though they were going to contend with the entire cultivation world. Originally, 8th Sister Xu thought that this time, Wishing School would at most send 2 or 3 Pure Yang practitioners to preside over this matter, but she did not expect that the Pure Yang 5 would come together. At this time, 8th Sister Xu was deeply aware and secretly regretful. It was precisely because of her appeal in the cultivation world that the 5 Elements sect seemed to have fallen into an extremely passive situation. 8th Sister Xu also felt that she had vented her anger, but it also made the 5 Elements sect very vigilant. Otherwise, if she pretended to know nothing at the beginning, Wishing School would definitely not let the Pure Yang 5 go together, no matter how much they valued it. That would attract attention. In this case, when Wishing School stole the water vein and then destroyed it, perhaps only 8th Sister Xu could do it. However, it was too late to say anything at this time. The Pure Yang 5 Elements formation was famous in the cultivation world. At the moment when the Pure Yang 5 of Wishing School came, 8th Sister Xu had already guessed that many people who wanted to make trouble for Wishing School would retreat or choose to watch from a distance. However, 8th Sister Xu was confident that there were many people who were not willing to let Wishing School succeed. As long as someone took the lead, these people would definitely follow the trend and attack. At that time, after a chaotic battle, Wishing School would be outnumbered and would definitely lose this battle. But the key was the person who took the lead. The person who dared to stand out and challenge the Pure Yang 5 must at least have the ability to hold on for a period of time under the siege of the Pure Yang 5. Otherwise, he would be killed in the blink of an eye. In that case, not only could he not play the role of taking the lead, but he would also become a tool for the Pure Yang 5 to establish their power. But the problem was here. Who had the confidence to hold on for a moment under the siege of the Pure Yang 5? After thinking about it, in the entire cultivation world, apart from those supreme masters, perhaps only Xiao Baiyu could do it. But was Xiao Baiyu so easy to be schemed against? When 8th Sister Xu heard Xiao Baiyu's refusal, she was not annoyed. Instead, she said, "I'll tell you clearly. It's not that I haven't seen the strength of the Pure Yang 5. Even if I join forces with Senior Shimin, we won't have much of an advantage under the siege of the 5 people. But you can, and you can even escape before the siege of the Pure Yang 5. There were also mutual compliments among the Pure Yang Laozu, but most of them were arrogant. If they had not fought before, they would not be willing to admit that they were not as good as others. Although 8th Sister Xu did not say it directly, the meaning was very clear. That was, 8th Sister Xu thought that even if she joined forces with Shimin Mingyu, they would not be a match for Xiao Baiyu. Xiao Baiyu obviously did not expect that 8th Sister Xu, who had always been arrogant, would actually say that her strength was not as good as his. Even Shimin Mingyu, who was next to him, had a calm expression. He even smiled when Xiao Baiyu looked over. In fact, everyone knew that the best way was to rush forward, but the problem was also very obvious. No one believed anyone else. Xiao Baiyu pondered for a moment, then he slowly said, "I really have some confidence to resist the Pure Yang 5 for a while, but the crux of the problem is not here." Hearing that Xiao Baiyu said that he was confident to fight against the Pure Yang 5, 8th Sister Xu and Shimin Mingyu showed joy, followed by shock. Although they had estimated Xiao Baiyu's strength to be high enough, it was obvious that they still underestimated it in the end. 8th Sister Xu was shocked. After the battle of the Pure Yang and Qiming River, Xiao Baiyu's strength had increased again. Shimin Mingyu saw that Xiao Baiyu was serious, and his face also became serious. He asked, "Oh, then what does Brother Xiao think that we haven't thought of?" Xiao Baiyu smiled bitterly and said, "It is not only the pure Yang 5 who came to Wishing School." Shimin Mingya's face changed, and he said, "Why, is the five-element old ghost also coming?" Then he thought of something and said, "No, even if he comes, he can't do much. It is better to stay at the main peak of Wishing School, and he can still exert 20 or 30% of his strength as a Supreme Master." Xiao Baiyu's face flashed, and then he said, "It is not a Supreme Master, it is the wine tripod of heaven and earth." With a single glance, everyone fell silent. After a long time, Eighth Sister Zhu said with an ugly face, "They really brought the wine tripod of heaven and earth down from Wishing School. Aren't they afraid that it will be snatched away?" The wine tripod of heaven and earth was one of the 6 great artifacts of sky opening. It was the treasure used by ape Taoists to regulate the spiritual veins in the world among the 7th patriarch of sky opening. No one had expected that it had always been under the control of Wishing School. Moreover, according to the previous conversation between Xiao Baiyu and Eighth Sister Zhu, it seemed that the wine tripod of heaven and earth had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. It was in Wishing School when the Wishing School was founded. This kind of thing had always been a top secret in the cultivation world, but now it seemed that it was known to all the pure Yang Laozu. Xiao Baiyu smiled and said, "The pure Yang 5 sons will set up the pure Yang 5 elements formation and use the wine tripod of heaven and earth as a suppressor. In the world, except for a few Supreme Masters, who can snatch the wine tripod of heaven and earth from their hands? What's more, with this thing suppressing the earth veins and water veins, the communication with the green jade canal will become smoother. Even if something unexpected happens, with the identity of the 5 elements Laozu, he can come here in the blink of an eye." For a moment, Eighth Sister Zhu had no idea. She opened her mouth and said, "What should we do?" Shimin Mingyu coughed and said with a faint smile, "Fellow Taoist Xiao must have an idea. Why don't you say it so that we can study it together? And those friends who have never shown up, I think there are many acquaintances. Wouldn't it be best if we all come out together and work together?" Xiao Baiyu smiled, and Shimin Mingyu couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. There were only a few pure Yang Laozu in the cultivation world. As long as they showed up, they knew almost all of them. However, no one appeared behind Xiao Baiyu. Obviously, they were unwilling to meet these 2 people. Xiao Baiyu said, "To tell you the truth, I really don't have a way. After thinking about it, I just act according to the circumstances. Although I don't want Wishing School to communicate with the water veins of Qingming River, compared with my own life, the water veins of Qingming River are nothing." After sending away Eighth Sister Zhu and Shimin Mingyu, Yuan Pokong tore the void and walked out from behind Xiao Baiyu, cursing, "Damn, they want us to be cannon fodder. I heard that you and this surnamed Zhu had such a relationship. Unexpectedly, you are so ruthless. You really deserve to be the most vicious woman. I say, Xiao, you shouldn't have told them about the heaven and earth wine cauldron. Wouldn't it be better to let them suffer a hidden loss? Do you still want to have tender feelings for the fairer sex?" While Yuan Pokong was talking excitedly, someone suddenly pulled his clothes from behind. When Yuan Pokong came back to his senses, he saw Xiao Baiyu staring at him with an unkind expression. Yuan Pokong suddenly shivered and said, "After all, the heaven and earth wine cauldron is a treasure left behind by the Laozu sect of our Yuan family. Although this object was not left to our spiritual great ape clan in the end, I'm afraid that our old Yuan clan has a clear understanding of this object except for Wishing School." Lu Ping followed the water veins all the way to the east. After a long time and a long distance, he finally completely divided the violent fluctuations in front of him into 2 directions. The one with the most violent fluctuations was naturally the direction where the 9 mystical tower was located. Because that place had to defend against the continuous attacks of Mara's army for more than 10 years, the Qingming River's water veins had been used for defense. At the same time, the Qingming River's water veins were constantly in an extremely violent state. It was precisely because of this that when the wishing school began to steal the water veins, although it caused the entire water veins to vibrate even more violently, none of the powerful practitioners who had been cultivating in the water veins had realized that someone else was stealing the water veins. At most, they had secretly cursed the 9 mystical tower for taking up so many water veins. After all, the 9 mystical tower could be said to be at a critical juncture of life and death. Although these powerful practitioners were indignant, they could understand. And the other branch of the water veins with weaker fluctuations was naturally the one that the wishing school was preparing to draw. At this time, Lu Ping could already clearly sense that on the other branch of the water veins, there were already several auras of powerful practitioners hidden in it. In terms of cultivation, these powerful practitioners were almost all late Dharma adepts. In fact, Lu Ping could even faintly sense a pure yang aura. Chapter 1229. Just as Lu Ping stepped into this water vein and was secretly shocked by the aura of these powerful beings, the others who had entered this water vein naturally sensed Lu Ping's aura as well. Subsequently, these auras seemed to be very interested in the fact that a practitioner like Lu Ping, who was only at the mid-Dharma stage, could actually enter this water vein and reach this place. Soon, many divine senses landed on Lu Ping, and the expressions on their faces, such as curiosity, calmness, surprise, contempt, warning, and mockery, were all clearly sensed by Lu Ping. When Lu Ping first entered this water vein, he did panic for a moment, but very quickly he realized that these huge and powerful auras did not seem to care about his arrival, and after a moment of hesitation, he finally relaxed. Although Lu Ping had reached this place, there were more than 10 powerful auras gathered here, and Lu Ping did not dare to take another step into the water vein. At this moment, a strong wave of turbulence caused the entire water vein to shake like a bag that had been sealed. Among these more than 10 auras, there were a few exclamations of shock, and soon after, these auras disappeared within the water vein, as if they had been thrown out by the violent shaking of the water vein. In the instant that the water vein suddenly shook, Lu Ping realized that something was wrong. The Linglong wine tripod above his head spun rapidly, and Lu Ping quickly conjured several spells. Once the jade tide technique was activated, his entire body turned into a wave, flowing along with the shaking of the water vein. However, this was not enough. Lu Ping felt that he could be thrown out of the water vein at any time by this violent wave of turbulence. At this moment, the mantis haved, which had been silent in the core space, suddenly shouted, "Watch me!" The mantis haved scissors opened up, and 2 rays of light suddenly shot out from the core space. Sensing this, Lu Ping stretched out his arms to the left and right, and 2 rays of green jade light shot out from his fingertips, like 2 iron chains nailed into the water vein. Then, Lu Ping's entire body was fixed in place by these 2 rays of green jade light. No matter how turbulent the water vein was, Lu Ping remained in the water vein and was not thrown out. The water vein gradually calmed down, and Lu Ping could not help but let out a long breath. If the water vein shook even a little more violently, he would not be able to hold on any longer. However, before Lu Ping could calm down and see what had happened, 3 surprised auras wrapped around Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping's heart quivered. These 3 remaining auras were obviously left behind when the water vein shook just now, and these 3 auras were brimming with pure yang qi. These 3 remaining people were the 3 pure yang laozu. And one of these 3 auras was familiar to Lu Ping. Obviously, it was the person who helped him enter the water vein. Lu Ping wanted to follow this aura to thank the pure yang senior who helped him, but unexpectedly, these 3 auras disappeared in a flash. Lu Ping wanted to follow them again, but he could no longer find any trace. It was as if the 3 auras had disappeared into thin air in the water vein. At this moment, Lu Ping was the only one left in the water vein. He was helpless, but he didn't want to leave the water vein just like that. He knew that once he left the water vein, he would never be able to enter again. Hence, he could only follow the water vein and move forward. Even though the water vein had been fluctuating violently this entire time, it had only trembled once, as if the entire world had been turned upside down. It was as if the water vein was purposely eliminating the auras of the great cultivators that had just been released. As Lu Ping moved forward in the water vein, he sank his mind into the core space. At this moment, the spirit treasure seemed to be scratching its head. The praying mantis waved its two blades and moved back and forth on the scissors. It also looked very uneasy. Lu Ping's divine sense condensed in the core space. He waved at the spirit treasure and asked, "What was that just now? I didn't expect you to have this kind of ability." The mantis seemed to be a little anxious, grinding the two blades until they clanged against each other. It said, "It seems that there is something hidden in my body that will only be activated at certain times. This feeling seems to be faintly discernible in the water veins. The violent fluctuation before seemed to have triggered this hidden thing instinctively." Lu Ping furrowed his brows and said, "So you don't know what's going on?" The praying mantis nodded and waved its two large blades in the air again. However, as it waved the blades, a trace of spirit light flowed out from the tip of the blades. It gradually formed a complicated but strange picture in the core space. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the praying mantis spent a lot of effort to finish drawing the picture. This was because the praying mantis did not stop at all from beginning to end, and the praying mantis only copied it from beginning to end. Lu Ping looked at this picture and asked hesitantly, "This is a talisman?" The praying mantis shook its head and said, "I don't know." The moment the water began to fluctuate violently, the two spirit treasure enchantments engraved in my body began to change. In the end, it formed this image, and then my body shot out two blade lights that could bind the water veins. Lu Ping reached out and held the spirit treasure in his hand. The praying mantis walked around on Lu Ping's shoulder and said, "It's useless." The moment the blades disappeared, the picture began to disintegrate and turn back into the two spirit treasure restrictions. Lu Ping's divine sense entered the scissor's body. Sure enough, there were only the two spirit treasure restrictions that were countless times more complicated than the magic treasure restrictions. Other than that, there was nothing else. Lu Ping had no choice but to look at the talisman painting that the praying mantis had condensed in the air. The more he looked at it, the more uncomfortable he felt. This picture looked like a talisman, but the more he looked at it, the more it looked like a talisman that had been cut in the middle. Lu Ping didn't understand, so he asked the praying mantis again. Unsurprisingly, the praying mantis was also confused. It only said that the moment the water vein shook violently, the two spirit treasure restrictions in its body that had been tempered by the thunder tribulations changed at the same time and turned into the shape of the previous spirit map. Lu Ping naturally knew about the legend of water break Laozu in Wuxing School. Naturally, he associated the spirit map drawn by the praying mantis with this. But how to reactivate this spirit map, what use it had, and how to use it, Lu Ping still didn't know. At this moment, the extremely turbulent water vein suddenly became even more violent. Although Lu Ping tried his best to control the Linglong wine cauldron to stabilize it, he still couldn't adapt to it. Seeing that he was about to be thrown out, the clang in the core space shouted, "It's coming again!" This time, half of Lu Ping's mind was in the core space. He immediately found that the previous spirit map had appeared on the scissor's body again. This time, Lu Ping could see it more clearly and intuitively. The spirit map outlined by the mysterious talisman lines looked like a talisman to Lu Ping, and it indeed looked like half of a talisman. On this talisman spirit map, many of the winding talisman lines seemed to be connected halfway, but at this place, they were interrupted at the edge of the spirit map. Just at the moment when the two spirit treasure restrictions turned into this half-spirit map, two cyan jade blade lights appeared again. Lu Ping tried to easily control the two blade lights to grab the water vein next to him, and completely stabilized his body in the water vein. Lu Ping's heart moved. After adapting to the violent wave of the water vein, Lu Ping tried to control one of the blade lights to cut the water vein. The water vein was suddenly cut, and then the water vein was closed again in front of Lu Ping's surprised eyes. The water vein could be cut so easily? It was not difficult to destroy a water vein, but it was not so easy to destroy the Qingming River's water vein. Moreover, it was even more difficult to cut a water vein so easily. What was this cyan jade blade light? This thought flashed in Lu Ping's mind, and then his attention was no longer on the water vein. This was because the sudden increase in the fluctuations in the water vein made him know that there must be a fierce battle going on outside this branch of the water vein. The 3 pure yang auras that suddenly disappeared before were probably involved in this battle. The aftermath of the battle could affect the water vein at any time. Right now, Lu Ping was even thinking about whether to leave the water vein. Judging from the sudden disappearance of the 3 pure yang cultivators, there must be other pure yang cultivators involved in this battle. Moreover, he had seen Xiao Baiyu before, so he was even more sure that there must be many pure yang cultivators involved in this battle. Just as Lu Ping was hesitating, he suddenly found that the water vein in front of him had come to an end. Through the water vein, he could clearly see the other end of the green jade canal. The other water vein was also facing the one Lu Ping was in. There seemed to be an inexplicable resistance between the 2 water veins, preventing them from completely merging. The green jade canal had been opened, but the water veins of the 2 rivers could not be connected. So, naturally, Wuxing School could not use the Qingming River to help the Yulon River, and use the 2 water veins to make up for the defect of the broken water vein. Moreover, Wuxing School had been scheming for a long time, so they must have a way to connect the water veins. Now, the formation outside the water vein obviously meant that someone was trying to stop Wuxing School from connecting the 2 water veins. Just as Lu Ping was thinking about what to do next, a blue light suddenly fell from the sky. A water ape flashed out of the light and said in surprise, "Hey, there's someone in the water vein?" Chapter 1230. Lu Ping was shocked as he watched the water ape in front of him retreat. At the same time, he was secretly on his guard, ready to strike at any time. That's strange. A little mid-Dharma adept can actually stay in the water for such a long time. Even such violent waves did not throw you out. Interesting. Other than the head of an ape, this water ape was no different from a human. It was also dressed in human clothes, and it looked like a monkey. But this water ape had a very unexpected aura that made Lu Ping feel wary. His divine will moved forward in a roundabout way, but Lu Ping was still unable to sense the water ape's background. He had no idea what its level of training and ability was. The water ape seemed to sense something and blew a breath of air to its side. Not far away, Lu Ping's face paled, and he could not help but take a step back. He heard the water ape say, "Not bad, your divine will is almost on par with the pure Yang Laozi. No wonder you were able to find the water when you were only at the mid-Dharma stage. But just this alone is far from enough to stay in the water under such violent waves. Let me guess what method you used." As it said this, the water ape's eyes flashed red. Lu Ping's heart sank, and he activated the North Sea wave listening technique in an attempt to suppress something, but it was too late. Just as the water ape's eyes looked at Lu Ping, the Linglong wine tripod that was hidden in the core space suddenly seemed to lose control of Lu Ping, and it suddenly rushed out of the core space. It happened so suddenly that Lu Ping didn't have time to suppress it. But the moment the Linglong wine cauldron broke out of the core space, Lu Ping waved his hand and a water rope condensed in midair. The water rope instantly wrapped around the wine cauldron's leg. At the same time, Lu Ping's divine sense penetrated the water rope into the wine cauldron, breaking through a layer of obstruction and establishing a connection with the wine cauldron's artifact spirit. Linglong had only been controlled by the water ape because of her natural weakness. If not for Lu Ping's timely discovery, and the fact that the Linglong wine tripod was something that Lu Ping had refined, the tripod that was about to fall into the water ape's hands would have been snatched back by Lu Ping at the last moment. Like I said. The water ape looked at Lu Ping curiously, as if it was a little surprised that Lu Ping had been able to stop the Linglong wine tripod in front of it, but it still continued to say, "Many late Dharma adepts have been thrown out by us, and you are just a mid-dharma adept, minor repairs. What makes you think that you are able to stay in this water vein? So it is because of this imitation, but in front of us, the elder ape, this kind of trash is just trash. Lu Ping did not know the identity of the person in front of him, but he heard it call him the elder ape, which was exactly the same tone that Yuan Long had used in the past. So he said, "Senior, are you a great adept of the great spiritual ape clan? Do you know of Yuan Long?" According to Yuan Long, he was one of the best of the third generation of the great spiritual ape clan, and his name was even mentioned in front of the great adepts of the clan. If that was the case, perhaps they could avoid conflict. After all, the water ape in front of him was really strange, and Lu Ping could not figure out how strong it was. Even though Lu Ping still felt that there was something very strange about the water ape, and from its tone, it seemed that it was the one who had thrown all the great adepts out of the water vein earlier. This feeling of not being able to figure out the other party's strength was something that Lu Ping had only experienced with Xiao Baiyu back then. "Huh!" The water ape looked at Lu Ping in amusement and said, "Are you trying to make friends? What Yuan Long? I've never heard of him before, but the great spiritual ape seems to have some relationship with us, the elder ape. But when they see us, the elder ape, we have to address them as the Laozi clan." Lu Ping secretly cursed at Yuan Long for bragging to him all the time, saying that there was no one in the entire great spiritual ape clan who did not know him, but this person before him was snorting disdainfully at him. However, when Lu Ping thought about it, he realized that the monkey before him had clearly acknowledged his identity as the great ape wisdom. But he also seemed to be very unfamiliar with the great ape wisdom. Could it be similar to the Wudhuan clan in the 9 mystical towers Longevity Heaven's Grotto Heaven? Just as Lu Ping was about to ask more questions, he suddenly saw the water ape before him open its mouth and smile sinisterly. Lu Ping had a bad feeling, and he immediately sensed that the water vein around him had begun to change in an instant. It was as if the entire water vein had suddenly fallen under someone's control, and Lu Ping's body began to be compressed and imprisoned by the water vein. Lu Ping was proficient in the North Sea Wave listening technique, and his water attribute magic powers were unparalleled. Even though his cultivation was limited, he was not completely powerless against this unknown water ape before him. The water manipulation technique concealed his water transformation technique. While Lu Ping was doing his best to weaken the water vein's rejection, he was also doing his best to seize control of the surrounding water vein in order to break free from it. A slight look of shock appeared on the water ape's face. Next, the space that Lu Ping had been confined to within a very narrow space suddenly began to expand due to the change in control of the water vein. After obtaining a larger space to move around, Lu Ping quickly began preparing other methods to counterattack. The water ape snickered and the surrounding water vein began breaking in a very peculiar and abrupt manner. The water vein moved along Lu Ping's body, causing Lu Ping to fall out from the water vein. Truth be told, for a moment, Lu Ping felt that the outcome was quite good. In the face of an opponent that he could not figure out, the most sensible move would be to retreat from the water vein. Doing so would allow Lu Ping to escape unscathed. However, perhaps because he was unwilling to admit defeat, or for some other unknown reason, Lu Ping unexpectedly began to use his magic powers to resist the water ape's control of the nearby water vein's rejection. Taking advantage of the moment when the compressed space slightly expanded, Lu Ping once again summoned the Linglong wine cauldron. Borrowing the power of the wine cauldron, Lu Ping's control over the surrounding water vein was once again strengthened. However, in the face of the water ape's control over the entire branch of the Qingning River, Lu Ping was still at an absolute disadvantage. At this time, Lu Ping finally came to his senses. The water ape in front of him was controlling the entire branch of the water vein and had not used its full strength against him. In its eyes, Lu Ping was only a side effect. Even though Lu Ping was an ant in the water ape's eyes, his strength had exceeded its expectations, but he was only able to struggle at death's door for a few more moments. Although Lu Ping knew that the water ape did not place him in its eyes, this was the moment of its final struggle. Right now, the water ape was clearly focusing all of its attention on controlling the entire branch of the water vein. It did not even have the time to pay attention to Lu Ping, who was right in front of it. If Lu Ping did not take advantage of this opportunity to escape, once the water ape was free, Lu Ping did not believe that he would have a path of survival. 5,000 li away from the Nine Profound Tower, on the shore of the green Netherworld River, along with the trembling of the earth veins, a huge fissure appeared on the ground, starting from the far north of the shore and finally connecting with the shore. The water of the green Netherworld River was immediately diverted, and the surging river water flowed along the fissure towards the north. At this moment, the Qingming River was formed. However, in order for this moment to be formed, Wuxing School had secretly prepared for more than 10 years. Surveying the earth vein, connecting the earth vein, and setting up a great guiding formation. Just these preparations alone had consumed a large amount of Wuxing School's training resources. The surging waters of the dark green river flowed northwards through a channel that had been created through the use of a formation to connect with the ley lines of the earth. This channel also flowed northwards, and the Yulan River, which passed through the Five Elements School, also had a new channel. This channel flowed directly towards the dojo of the Broken Water School. The Yulan River branched off and flowed along the channel, also flowing south. The two ends of the canal were connected to the two largest rivers in the Central Plains, and they flowed into the canal at the same time, converging towards the center. These two streams of water were obviously enhanced by secret techniques. They flowed at an extremely fast speed, not any slower than the flying speed of an ordinary Dharma adept. Based on this speed, it would only take 2 or 3 days for the two streams of water to converge in the middle of the canal, which was originally tens of thousands of miles apart. At the two ends of the canal, when the two rivers began to flow into each other, a large amount of muddy water flowed into the canal. After the two opposing streams of water flowed along the canal for a day and a night, the water at the very front, when it flowed over the channel formed by the collapse of the ground, directly suppressed the muddy water that had been stirred up by the Qingming River. If one were to look down from the sky, one would be able to see two huge streams of water. One green stream flowed south from the north, while the other green stream flowed up from the south. However, since ancient times, the Qingming River and the Yulan River had never been compatible. The Yulan River's water had been activated, and a branch of the Qingming River flowed south along the canal, following the green stream of water. The Qingming River's water had also been activated by the Wuxing School, following the green stream of water as it flowed south. It was like two ferocious beasts that had sworn to fight to the death. Although they could not see each other, they seemed to have long known that they would eventually meet, and the moment they met, there was bound to be a great upheaval. Yuan Pokong rubbed his palms together and said, "How about we cut off this stream of water from the Qingming River now?" Yuan Shaotian smiled bitterly and said, "It's useless. The Wuxing School has been planning this for a long time. When they opened up this canal, they also connected the ley lines on which the canal is located. The moment the canal was formed, the branch of water from the Qingming River began to connect with the ley lines along the canal. If you cut off the stream of water, it would be the same as cutting off the ley lines." Yuan Pokong cursed. There was no need to talk about the fusion of the water veins. Just the earth veins that the Five Elements sect had spent over 10 years to open up had already formed a hole. It would not be easy for Yuan Pokong to break it open. Now that the water veins were connected to the earth veins, it would be even more difficult for him to break it open. But even if Yuan Pokong could break it, he would not dare to do it. The Wuxing School had been plotting against the Qingming River for hundreds of years, so naturally they would not leave a canal that could be destroyed so easily. The ley lines of the canal were connected with all kinds of ley lines of different sizes along the way, and the ley lines strengthened this close connection. At the same time, the canal was also closely connected with the two great rivers. In other words, when the Wuxing School built the Qingming Canal, they also kidnapped all the ley lines along the way. Even if someone was powerful enough to destroy the Qingming Canal, he or she would have to face an earth-shattering catastrophe. Chapter 1231. Where was the key to solving the Green Jade Canal? Wishing School had been preparing for more than 10 years and had eliminated almost all the loopholes. The only key to finding out was the moment when the two rivers met. The Qingming River and the Yulin River could not merge. This was a secret known by the entire world of practitioners. At this time, the two rivers flowed into the canal and converged towards the center, one north and one south. If Wishing School really had a way to make the two rivers merge the moment they met, then the pure Yang 5 would definitely be waiting there. Preventing the pure Yang 5 suns from fusing the two water veins was the simplest way to crack the Green Jade Canal. As long as the Five Elements sect could not complete this fusion, the two water veins would inevitably return to the main veins of the two great rivers after a long time. The so-called Green Jade Canal would really only be a canal left, and it would no longer have the effect that the Five Elements sect had intended to use to support the broken water vein. Luoya River, Luo Xian Mountain. Luoya River was a river located between the Yulin River and the Qingming River. Although this river was not as large as the Yulin River and the Qingming River, it was still considered one of the few rivers in Central Plains. In the middle of the Luoya River flowed Luo Xian Mountain. This Luo Xian Mountain was heart-shaped, and because it was located near the Luoya River, it was called Luo Xian Mountain. On top of Luo Xian Mountain, there was a medium-sized sect known as the Luo Xian sect. This medium-sized sect had a legacy of 3,000 years in Central Plains. There was a grand adept in the sect, and in addition to other mid and early Dharma adepts, there were 7 or 8 of them. In the North Sea, a sect with this level of strength could compete with Xianling sect and Sunghai sect. But in the Middle Earth, where there were many sects, even if it was not outstanding, its influence was only within a radius of 2,000 to 3,000 miles. However, at this time, the Luo Xian sect was tightly locked. The entire sect's defense formation was up as if they were facing a formidable enemy. In the Luo Xian Palace at the top of Luo Xian Mountain, led by the sect's only Grand Master, Luo Xian Laozu, 8 Dharma adepts of the Luo Xian sect stood in the palace. 5 seats were placed neatly at the front of the Luo Xian Palace. 5 old men of different appearances sat on the seats and listened to Luo Xian Laozu's report. There were also several great cultivators standing at the sides. Does that mean the Luoya water vein is completely under the control of the Luo Xian sect? Mu Lingzi, who was sitting on the leftmost side, suddenly opened his eyes and asked as he glanced at Patriarch Luo Xian calmly. Luo Xian Laozu bowed very low. After a moment of silence, she said, "I dare not say that it is completely safe." However, after the ancestors of the Luo Xian sect separated from the Five Elements sect 3,000 years ago, they remembered the sage sect's responsibility. For the past 3,000 years, the Luo Xian sect has been relying on the sage sect. Although our sect is only one of the 5 sects that control the Luoya water vein, with the guidance of the sage sect, we have been secretly setting up a water vein breaking array. When the two water veins meet, we will completely cut off the Luoya water vein. Mu Lingzi nodded. The expression on his face was non-committal. However, Fire Lingzi, who was beside him, suddenly opened his mouth. His voice was like a series of bursting flames. What if the other 4 sects interfere at the same time? Luo Xian Laozu's reply was still humble. However, she seemed to be very prepared. She said, "The other 4 sects have their own grudges. They will definitely not interfere at the same time, and they will not have the time to do so. Furthermore, this is obviously the sage sect's plan. They do not have the guts to interfere." Luo Xian Laozu flattered Fire Spirit. Then she began to express her determination to the 5 Laozus. She said, "Even if that happens, for the sake of the sage sect, we can give up a part of the water vein that our sect controls when the Yulin and Qingming water veins meet. We can then completely merge it with the other 2 water veins. This will not affect the sage sect's plan." Fire Spirit nodded in satisfaction. However, he immediately saw that there were two younger-looking practitioners behind Luo Xi and Laozu. They seemed to be displeased. Among the three middle-aged practitioners in the middle Dharma stage, one of them was expressionless. However, compared to the other two, he was very eye-catching. Whether it was cutting off the Luoya water vein or giving up a part of the water vein that Luo Xian sect controlled, it was an action that would damage the foundation of Luo Xian sect. By then, regardless of whether the two water veins were merged or not, Luo Xian sect would still suffer a heavy blow. Once the water vein was no longer connected, if the Five Elements sect retreated, the five of them would naturally not dare to provoke the Five Elements sect. However, the Luo Xian sect would definitely become the scapegoat. Thinking about the people who had stirred up a storm in the cultivation world because of this matter, all of them were famous great divinities. By then, the entire Luo Xian sect might not even be able to be destroyed by Eighth Sister Zhu alone. Even if Wishing School succeeded in the end, Luo Xian sect would lose the support of the Luoya water vein. The foundation of the entire sect would be reduced by at least a third. Even though Wishing School said that they would definitely be compensated, Wishing School that had made up for the water vein would definitely end up provoking the entire cultivation world. Even if Luo Xian sect received the compensation from Wishing School, without the support of Wishing School, it was hard to say whether they would be able to keep the compensation. The expressions of the Dharma adepts of Luo Xian sect were seen by Fire Lingzi. Naturally, the other four pure Yang Laozu also noticed. Jin Lingzi, who was on the far right, looked at the 8 Dharma adepts of Luo Xian sect. It was as if a pair of sharp swords had pierced through their insides. Not only did the dissatisfied cultivators turn as pale as paper, even Luo Xian Laozu's heart suddenly sank. She felt as if there was a blade on her back, and she lowered her head even more. A sound like metal rubbing against each other rang out. Jin Lingzi's voice was so cold that it almost penetrated the hearts of Luo Xian Laozu and the rest. He said, "What is it? Are you dissatisfied with anything?" The Luo Xian sect cultivators in the Luo Xian palace all shuddered. Luo Xian Laozu, who was almost 1,000 years old, smiled and said, "The Luo Xian sect is only where it is today because of the Sage sect's support. Now is the time for the Luo Xian sect to repay the Sage sect. Even if we have to use all our strength, it is only right." Luo Xian Laozu's words made the Dharma adepts of Luo Xian sect lower their heads even more. Beside Jin Lingzi was the first pure Yang Laozu of the Broken Water sect in the past few thousand years. Shui Lingzi smiled and said, "Brother Luo Xian, please rest assured. Once the Green Jade Canal is opened, our sect will need the Luo Xian sect as a bridgehead to guard the water channel. When that time comes, the Sage sect will only strengthen the Luo Xian sect and not weaken it. As for the other forces, if I were to promise you that there will not be any, I'm afraid you will not believe me. However, it is precisely because of this that the Sage sect is willing to pay any price to help the Luo Xian sect gain a foothold here." After the first blow, the benefits came immediately. The two pure Yang patriarchs of the Five Elements sect worked very well together. Naturally, Patriarch Luo Xian had to put on a good show. The Dharma adepts behind Luo Xian Laozu straightened their backs slightly. Luo Xian Laozu was also very grateful. She said, "Thank you, Sage sect, for your understanding. The Luo Xian sect will be of one mind and will definitely do everything we can for the Sage sect." Shui Lingzi smiled and said, "If that's the case, Brother Luo Xian, please go and prepare. I believe there will be a fierce battle soon. The Sage sect has been planning for hundreds of years for this, and we cannot afford to lose it. The Luo Xian sect is an important part of the Sage sect's plan. The rest will depend on the Luo Xian sect." Luo Xian Laozu was so excited that her voice started to tremble. She said, "Serving the Sage sect is the foundation of our sect for 3,000 years. As soon as Luo Xian Laozu finished her sentence, Earthlingzi, who had been sitting in the middle, suddenly said, "They're here." Luo Xi and Laozu did not know what was going on. She looked up and saw that Earthling Zi, who had been silent all this while, had opened his eyes. His gaze landed on Luo Xi and Laozu for a moment before leaving. The 4 pure young Laozu beside him were also stunned. Then, a series of loud noises could be heard. The sect-protecting formation of the Luo Xian sect shook violently and seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Luo Xian Laozu was shocked. There was a hint of panic in her eyes. Judging from the series of attacks that hit the sect-protecting formation, it was at least 4 late Dharma adepts who had joined forces. However, Luo Xian Laozu immediately thought of the 5 pure young Laozu in front of her and the few great adepts from the Wuxing school around them. However, these people were extremely calm and there was no expression on their faces. Luo Xian Laozu immediately regained her composure, and the panic she felt earlier disappeared. Then she heard Waterlingzi say with a smile, "Friend Luo Xian, there is no need to panic. Just focus on dealing with the enemy." Luo Xian Laozu pretended to be relaxed and responded. Then, she led the Dharma adepts out of the Luo Xian palace. After the Luo Xian sect adepts left, Fire Lingzi said to a great adept from the Wuxing school, "Wuxian, follow them secretly. Be careful of their tricks." Just as Wuxian agreed, a great adept beside him smiled and said, "You don't have to do this, Uncle Master. When I helped the Luo Xian sect strengthen the sect-protecting formation, I already did something. If they dare to do anything, I will know immediately. When that time comes, it will be as easy as raising your hand to destroy them." When Fire Lingzi saw who was speaking, he laughed and said, "I knew you, Jin Chan, were the most cunning. Your formation skills are getting better and better. Even your teacher was no better than this." Jin Chan smiled and said, "It's a pity that I have limited talent. Now, my understanding of formations is almost at its limit. It's a pity that the 9 core formations of the Southern Sea Nether Lost Formation have collapsed. Otherwise, I could have studied inside for decades and might have a chance to surpass my teacher." The great adept, Jin Chan, obviously had a high status in the Wuxing school. Although he was only a late Dharma adept, he still maintained the proper respect in front of the 5 pure young Laozu and was able to speak calmly. From his tone, it was obvious that he was a master-level formation master. At that moment, Earthling Z's voice suddenly rang in Jin Chan's ears. He asked, "Can this sect-protecting formation withstand an attack from a pure young adept?" "What?" Jin Chan was stunned. Then, his expression changed. He turned his gaze as if he wanted to see through the Luo Xian palace to see what was happening outside. Chapter 1232. Outside the protective formation of Luo Xian Mountain, 4 late Dharma adepts from the other 4 sects stood in the air. Their cold gazes pierced through the protective formation of the Luo Xian sect and stared coldly at the terrified Luo Xian Laozu. Their gazes were filled with disdain and mockery. At this time, Luo Xian Laozu, who was being supported by 3 Dharma adepts, was not looking at the 4 adepts. Instead, she was looking at the middle-aged female adept behind them. She was the pure young Laozu of the 9 Xian Tower, 8th Sister Zhu. On the protective formation of the Luo Xian sect, a hole the size of a bowl was slowly closing up. Luo Xian Laozu's chest was slowly turning red. Luo Xian Laozu turned her head around with difficulty and looked at the 3 Dharma adepts who were supporting her. The 2 early Dharma adepts of the 3rd generation were the ones who had looked angry and sorrowful in the Luo Xian palace. The middle Dharma adept was also the one who had been calm the entire time, and did not seem to be fawning over the people of Wuxing school. Luo Xian Laozu looked at the 2 early Dharma adepts beside her and moved her lips. It was as if she was saying something, but it was also as if she did not say anything. She looked at the middle Dharma adept beside her and opened her mouth, but it was full of blood. In the end, she did not say anything. A look of sorrow flashed across the face of the 2nd generation disciple, but he quickly regained his calm expression. It was as if he was trying his best to control the sorrow in his heart. He turned to the two third-generation disciples beside him and said, "Did your senior granduncle say anything?" A third-generation disciple had an infuriated expression on his face, and he was about to speak when another third-generation disciple by his side suddenly pulled on his sleeve and said, "Junior brother, look at the situation now. It's related to the survival of our sect, so you can't act willfully anymore." After saying that, although the second-generation disciple still had grief and indignation on his face, he controlled it well and said, "Second Martial Granduncle wants us to pass on our sect no matter what. However, Second Martial Uncle, if the seniors of Wishing School, Laozu, don't do anything, I'm afraid that our sect will be destroyed first." The second Martial Uncle nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go to Luo Xian Palace and ask Pure Yang Laozu of Wishing School to help." The two third-generation disciples took a deep look at Second Uncle Master's silhouette, then brought Luo Xian Laozu's corpse to the back of Luo Xian Mountain. That was where the ancestors of Luo Xian's sect died, and where the protective formation of Luo Xian's sect was located. In the Luo Xian Palace, Shui Lingzi frowned and said in doubt, "Why did 8th Sister Zhu jump out now? This person always pushes others to be cannon fodder so that she can take advantage of the situation." This is the opposite of her style. Fire Spirit slammed the armrest of his chair and stood up. "I'll go and meet this crazy woman." Earth Spirit snorted and said, "Fifth brother, sit down. Don't be impatient." Earth Spirit was the leader of the Pure Yang Five. Although Fire Spirit was hot-tempered, he seemed to respect Earth Spirit a lot. Although he was still unhappy, he still sat down. The merging of the water veins is the result of hundreds of years of planning. We can't afford to make any mistakes, and we can't let our emotions affect our decisions. Fire Spirit groaned, but his face was much calmer. Earth Lingzi continued, "The fusion of the Qingming and Yulin river veins is a great sin for our sect. It will definitely be a great battle. Our sect is outnumbered, and the only thing we can rely on is our ample preparation and the Pure Yang Five Elements formation. If you can't even stand such provocation, then wouldn't the hundreds of years of planning of our sect be ruined in your hands?" Fire Spirit was speechless. Shui Lingzi wanted to say something, but he suddenly looked outside the palace. He saw Second Uncle Master of Luo Xian's sect rushing into the Luo Xian Palace. He first bowed to Shui Lingzi, then to the other four Laozu. "I am Li Shuijie, a second-generation disciple of the Water-Broken sect. Greetings, Master, and everyone, Laozu." This outstanding second-generation disciple of Luo Xian's sect actually called Pure Yang Laozu and Shui Lingzi of the Water-Broken sect of Wuxing School as Master. Shui Lingzi sighed and said, "Shuijie, how long have you been in Luo Xian's sect?" Li Shuijie was stunned for a moment, then he said respectfully, "Master, I have been in Luo Xian's sect for 500 years. Shui Lingzi nodded and said, 500 years, that's not easy." Li Shuijie couldn't figure out what his master meant, but he thought of 8th Sister Zhu who was outside Luo Xian's sect. Although he didn't care about the survival of Luo Xian's sect, he had to inform the other Laozu of the appearance of a Pure Yang Laozu in Wishing School. "I have to inform Master and everyone, Laozu." Shui Lingzi sighed and stretched out her hand to stop Li Shuijie from speaking. "Is it 8th Sister Zhu?" Li Shuijie was stunned for a moment, then he said, "Yes, I." Shui Lingzi shook her head and said, "You don't have to say anything more. You should be in front of Luo Xian and the others." Li Shuijie was shocked. He suddenly thought of something and said in surprise, "What are they?" "Hee hee." Jean Chan chuckled and said, "I didn't expect Martial Uncle Shui to have someone like Junior Brother Li as a backup. Luo Xian Laozu is a sly old fox. It's not surprising that he saw through Junior Brother Li's identity. Fortunately, Senior Brother Li had planned ahead and left some tricks on the sect protecting formation of Luo Xian's sect. Apart from Senior Brother Li, there might be others in Luo Xian's sect who are on our side. They can't escape." As soon as he finished speaking, Another loud noise was heard from outside Luo Xian's sect, followed by a series of explosions. The sect-protecting formation of Luo Xian's sect started to crack. Jin Chan's eyes widened and he said, "How is this possible? Even if the formation I set up can't stop pure Yang Laozu, it can't be broken so easily." The 5 pure Yang Laozu's faces did not look too good. Not only did the explosions not stop, but they were also getting more and more frequent. For a moment, it felt like the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Jin Chan's face turned pale. He thought that the formation he set up could definitely control everything in Luo Xian's sect. He did not expect to be tricked so easily. Tu Lingzi's voice was still calm. After a while he said, "This is the sect-protecting formation at the back of the mountain." Jin Chan immediately understood and said, "What a great double formation, a formation within a formation. I didn't expect such an accomplished formation master to be hidden in Luo Xian's sect. I'll be right back." Tu Lingzi shook his head and said, "There's no need. It's too late." After saying that, Earth Spirit lifted his left foot and lightly stomped on the ground. The entire Luo Xian palace shook violently. Then, the ground suddenly collapsed by more than 3 feet. Li Shijie was not the only one who was shocked by Tu Lingzi's power. Even Jin Chan and the other cultivators from Wishing School were shocked. Even the other 4 pure Yang cultivators had complicated expressions. In the end, it was Shui Lingzi who said in surprise, "I didn't expect senior brother's cultivation to have reached such a level. I guess you're not far from the last step, right?" Tu Lingzi, who had always been so calm and unfathomable, showed a hint of pride. Then, it disappeared from his face and he said, "The formation at the back of the mountain is located in the middle of the mountain. I'm just using a trick." The sect-protecting formation of Luo Xian's sect was located in the middle of the mountain. The entrance was hidden by the tombs of the ancestors of Luo Xian's sect. After sending Li Shijie away, the 2 third-generation disciples brought the heavily injured Luo Xian Laozu to the middle of the mountain as fast as they could. At this time, the 2 mid-Dharma adepts who were guarding the sect-protecting formation were shocked when they saw Luo Xian Laozu in such a state. With their cultivation, they could naturally see the injuries on Luo Xian Laozu's body. One of the older adepts was shocked and angry. He stood up suddenly and said, "How could this happen? You two are so ignorant. How could you bring teacher here? Quick, bring teacher to Luo Xian Hall. There are pure young adepts from Wishing School there. Maybe they can save teacher's life." As soon as he finished speaking, the adepts felt a strange wind behind him. A cold, murderous intent pierced through his heart. He thought to himself, "Oh no!" As soon as he used his protective spell, he heard a sound that sounded like silk being torn apart. Under the adepts' disbelieving eyes and the 2 early Dharma adepts' shocked gazes, a magic weapon that looked like a flying dagger pierced through his chest. The adepts tried to turn his neck back, and his mouth kept gurgling as if he was trying to ask why. However, the younger second-generation disciple behind him had a cold expression on his face. He twisted the magic weapon in his hand again, and the core space was completely shattered. The Dharma power that had gone through one tribulation of lightning was crushed before it could escape from the core space. Third Martial Uncle Yu. The 2 third-generation cultivators who brought Patriarch Luo Xian here were stunned by the scene before them, and could not help but ask. At this moment, old ancestor Luo Xian, who was on the verge of death, suddenly regained consciousness. He sighed when he saw the scene before him and said, "Don't blame your third martial uncle. I'm the one who asked him to do this. Your first martial uncle has already pledged his loyalty to the 5-element sex formation Grandmaster, old ancestor Golden Cicada, and 2 of his disciples. I'm afraid the 5-element sect will find out soon." Luo Xian Laozu's injuries were extremely serious. After saying these 2 sentences, he spat out another mouthful of blood. The 2 third-generation disciples who were supporting him were flustered again, but Luo Xian Laozu pushed them away and said, "Third brother, we have to hurry. Wishing School will find out about this soon." The mid-Dharma adept nodded and put away the storage instrument of the fallen first uncle. He conjured a few spells with his hands and was about to cast a spell when he suddenly heard a series of explosions from outside the mountain. Immediately after, the third martial uncle's expression changed, and he took 2 steps back, just in time to stand in front of Luo Xian Laozu and the 2 early Dharma adepts. As the explosions sounded outside the mountain, the array board of the sect-protecting formation suddenly flashed wildly. Immediately after, there was a muffled sound, and the flying spirit stones and fragments of the array board were all blocked by the third martial uncle. When everything dissipated and the 2 early Dharma adepts looked over, the array board in front of them had mostly collapsed. However, there was still a piece in the middle that seemed to form a different structure. Luo Xian Laozu seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. She threw a storage instrument to the third martial uncle and said, "Luckily, the double array was not damaged. Most of the sect's inheritance is inside. Third brother, quickly take them away and go to the North Sea to find 6th brother Lei. He is the last disciple of the old man. Remember, you must pass on the sect." Chapter 1233. The Luo Xian sect's sect-protecting formation had a teleportation portal embedded in it. This was similar to the Kongming sect's teleportation portal embedded in other formation nodes. The only difference was that the Kongming sect's teleportation portal was fixed in place while the Kongming sect's teleportation portal was hidden in the formation node. Undoubtedly, the difficulty level was higher. However, this teleportation portal looked extremely small and exquisite. It was a short-distance teleportation portal that could only teleport 2 people at a time. The third Uncle Master had already embedded the Spirit Stone. Just as the 2 third-generation disciples stood on it, there was a sudden stomp from the cave above their heads. Luo Xian Laozu and the third Uncle Master's expressions changed instantly. Luo Xian Laozu suddenly shouted, "Hurry up and activate the teleportation portal!" With that, her body, which had already been shattered by 8th Sister Zhu's attack, suddenly exploded. A moth Dharma power suddenly expanded. At the same time, with that soft sound, the cave where the teleportation portal was located suddenly collapsed. The moth Dharma power tried its best to resist the collapse. However, cracks appeared on the moth Dharma power, and its body sank further. Luo Xian Laozu, who was already at the end of her strength, could not stop almost half of Luo Xian Mountain from collapsing. Moreover, this was a spell from the most powerful of the 5 pure Yang disciples of Wishing School, the Earth's spiritual son. Seeing that the teleportation portal had just been activated and the 2 third-generation disciples of the Luo Xian sect had yet to leave, the third Uncle Master did not say a word and suddenly exploded his body in the same way. A violent abyss Dharma power roared into the sky and pushed up with both palms. With the sacrifice of the 2 Dharma adepts' flesh and blood, the collapsing cave was finally stopped. The teleportation portal finally flashed with a white light, and the 2 early Dharma adepts of the Luo Xian sect were teleported away. Then, the 2 Dharma powers used up their last bit of energy, and the entire cave collapsed. At the back of Luo Xian Mountain, the tombs of the Luo Xian sect's ancestors were also buried in the collapsed mountain. With just 2 attacks, the sect-protecting formation of the entire Luo Xian sect started to crumble. No matter how confident Zhu Ba was in her cultivation base, she was stunned. The grand cultivators of the 4 medium-sized sects upstream and downstream of Luoya River who followed her saw 8th Sister Zhu's power, and they flattered her for a while. They were more and more afraid of the pure Yang Laozu in front of them. No matter what, 8th Sister Zhu wanted to set an example in front of the powerful cultivators who were hiding in the surroundings. Even if the sect-protecting formation of Luo Xian's sect was a trap, 8th Sister Zhu had to try it. If she didn't even have the courage to take this risk, she wouldn't have come this far in the cultivation world. Moreover, such a clumsy trap did not look like a trick of Wishing School. It looked more like an accident. If it was an accident, that would be even better. Eighth Sister Zhu turned into a stream of light and headed straight for the Luo Xian Hall at the top of Luo Xian Mountain. She knew that the pure Yang 5 Sons of Wishing School would definitely be gathered in the hall. However, just as Eighth Sister Zhu broke into the collapsing sect-protecting formation of Luo Xian sect, she saw the Luo Xian Mountain in front of her suddenly shake. Then, as Eighth Sister Zhu's heart suddenly jumped, there was a dull thud and the entire Luo Xian Mountain sank by 3 feet. Collapse? No, this was the work of Earth's spiritual sun. There was an internal conflict on Luo Xian Mountain. This was Eighth Sister Zhu's first reaction. She was excited for no reason. This was a good opportunity to kill. Eighth Sister Zhu waved her hand and each of the 36 flying forks turned into 3 feet long in midair. They were arranged in a picturesque manner and fell towards the Luo Xian Hall at the top of Luo Xian Mountain. During the battle at Qingming River, Eighth Sister Zhu's flying fork formation was broken by Xiao Baiyu's sword and a few of them were broken. Now, it had been mended. Moreover, after being besieged by Mara's army for more than 10 years in the 9 Mystical Tower, Eighth Sister Zhu was no longer the second-generation cultivator who had just entered the pure Yang state. Her attacks were more experienced and powerful. In the Luo Xian Hall, Shui Lingzi giggled and said, "It's rare for Eighth Sister Zhu to be the vanguard personally in the cultivation world. Let me meet the number 1 second-generation cultivator of the 9 Mystical Tower first." Her spiritual son nodded and said, "Eighth Sister Zhu is just a cover. It's fine as long as we block it. Eighth Sister Zhu wants to lure those who are watching from the sidelines to attack. Our pure Yang 5 elements formation naturally doesn't only trap Eighth Sister Zhu. Third Sister just needs to stay within 3 miles of the Luo Xian Hall." Shui Lingzi's body turned into water vapor and disappeared. She left a voice in midair and said, "Big brother, don't worry. I know what to do." Seeing that the 36 flying forks were about to land on the roof of the Luo Xian Hall, Eighth Sister Zhu only needed to set up the flying fork formation first. Even if she was not a match for the pure Yang 5 Sons, it wouldn't be difficult for her to restrain 2 or 3 of them for a short period of time. As long as the pure Yang 5 Sons couldn't set up the pure Yang 5 Elements formation in time, she wouldn't be the only one to attack. Those great divinities hidden in the surrounding void were all as cunning as ghosts. They naturally knew when was the best time to strike. As long as they found a flaw, they would definitely attack together and hit the enemy while they were down. No one was willing to see the strength of the 5 Elements sect rise to a higher level in the Central Plains. However, the pure Yang 5 Sons obviously wouldn't let Eighth Sister Zhu's wishful thinking be so easy. A cloud of water vapor floated out of the Luo Xian Hall and formed a colorful rainbow light under the sunlight. Then, this rainbow light really floated up and even separated from the previous water mist. The rolling pure Yang Qi filled the surroundings. It rolled in midair and suddenly enveloped 12 of the 36 flying forks. "Water cloud!" Eighth Sister Zhu shouted. 12 of the remaining 24 flying forks suddenly changed direction in midair and flew toward the rainbow light. The remaining 12 joined together one by one, forming a huge 3-pronged flying fork. It went straight toward the cloud that floated out of the Luo Xian Hall. A giggling sound could be heard, and the mist, as if it had been touched by a gentle breeze, drifted a few hundred feet to the side. Then, the mist gradually condensed, and Shui Ling walked out from it. The 12 flying pitchforks had missed their target. The other 12 flying forks that stabbed the colorful rainbow light passed through the rainbow light, and collided with the 12 flying forks that were trapped in the rainbow light. The flying forks formation was in chaos. Right at this moment, the rainbow light that Eighth Sister Zhu called water cloud abruptly retracted. This time, it took form and trapped the 24 flying pitchforks in one go. Shui Lingzi, who was nearby, stretched out her hand and beckoned. The rainbow light floated towards Shui Lingzi, wanting to collect the 24 flying pitchforks. Eighth Sister Zhu wasn't surprised. Instead, she was happy. She had been thinking about how to separate the pure Yang 5 children. Previously, When the flying fork array failed, she was already thinking about how to lure Shui Lingzi out of Luo Xian Mountain. She was even planning to give up her face and retreat in a sorry state. But now, Shui Lingzi wanted to take away her flying fork array. The flying fork array was 8th Sister Zhu's life source array. How could it be taken away so easily? 8th Sister Zhu also stretched out her hand and waved it in the air. The trapped 24 flying fork array flew towards 8th Sister Zhu fiercely, immediately entering a stalemate with Shui Lingzi. At the same time, the remaining 12 flying forks once again flew towards Shui Lingzi. Taking advantage of Shui Lingzi's dodging and not having enough time to absorb the water cloud, 8th Sister Zhu suddenly shook the 24 flying forks, and together with the water cloud, they moved several dozen feet towards 8th Sister Zhu's direction. Shui Lingzi seemed to be caught off guard for a moment. Her body that was floating in the air involuntarily tilted. She took a few steps in the air before stabilizing her body. 8th Sister Zhu was overjoyed. She waved her hand again, and the 24 flying forks once again struggled in 8th Sister Zhu's direction. At the same time, the 12 flying forks that were previously stabbing at Shui Lingzi turned around and drew an arc in the air. Then, they spread out into a fan shape and stabbed at Shui Lingzi's back. It seemed like they were trying to pull Shui Lingzi from the front and back. Shui Lingzi had no choice but to fly hundreds of feet forward again to avoid the encirclement of the flying forks behind her. The distance between Shui Lingzi and the 24 flying forks was once again pulled closer by 8th Sister Zhu. Seeing that she was pulling Shui Lingzi further and further away, Shui Lingzi wanted to use the same trick again. As long as she led Shui Lingzi to a certain distance, someone would naturally stop Shui Lingzi from joining up with the other 4 pure yang masters of Wuxing School. Then, the pure yang 5 elements array would naturally collapse on its own. However, just as 8th Sister Zhu once again exploded her pure yang power to pull Shui Lingzi forward, 24 flying forks suddenly burst out from the spiritual treasure, Shui Lingzi. Not far away, Shui Lingzi's mocking laughter could be heard. This time, it was 8th Sister Zhu's turn to be caught off guard. After she finally controlled the 24 flying forks and stabilized her body, she saw that Shui Lingzi had released the spiritual treasure, Shui Lingzi, who had previously collected the 24 flying forks. Then, Shui Lingzi shook her hand and threw the Shui Lingzi, which was shining with a colorful light under the sunlight, backward. However, it tore the 12 flying forks that were stabbing behind her into pieces. For a moment, 8th Sister Zhu actually had a feeling that she was being ridiculed like a clown. Shui Lingzi's laughter was like a sharp sword, piercing into 8th Sister Zhu's heart one after another. 8th Sister Zhu's face was pale. She stretched out one hand and suddenly opened it. The 12 flying forks that were previously messed up by Shui Lingzi were lined up in the air, once again blocking Shui Lingzi's path of retreat. The smile on Shui Ling's face disappeared, and when she turned around again, the remaining 24 flying forks had also spread out in front of her, merging with the previous 12 flying forks. At this time, Shui Ling happened to be in the middle of the 36 flying forks. The 36 flying forks array was formed. Shui Lingzi was playing with 8th Sister Zhu, and 8th Sister Zhu had given up her pure yang face to be ridiculed. How could she not be scheming against Shui Lingzi? Who? A gentle breeze mixed with moisture came from the north and south. 8th Sister Zhu and Shui Lingzi looked towards the north and south at the same time. 2 green jade ribbons came from the north and south along the canals opened by the 5 Elements sect. The green jade canal was about to connect. Just as the two of them were distracted, a wave of pure yang qi rolled over. A giant hand came from the depths of the pure yang qi and pressed down on Shui Lingzi's head. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.